After traveling for so long, the cleaners have finally reached the depths of the demonic soul abyss. From the point where the pitch-black river connects with the ink-colored sky, they can already see a colossal city reaching up to the heavens and the ground. This is the ultimate destination of their journey. However, what's hair-raising is the fact that the only road leading to that red and white colossal city is piled high with countless ferocious nightmares. Yes, piled high is the only way to describe the massive number and dense formation of nightmares ahead. How can there be so many nightmares? Looking at the nightmares sprawling from the nightmare river to the skies, blocking the entire river so darkly, the cleaners couldn't help but be shocked. Even though a single nightmare's strength is negligible, perhaps even weaker than a human farmer wielding a pitchfork, even a third-level cleaner with suitable abilities and terrain can easily grind down 100 or 80 of them. But at present, there are simply too many nightmares. The total number of nightmares faintly confronting in 2 columns can probably reach 1 million. Even though these nightmares do not stay only on the river surface but layer upon layer spreading to the sky, squeezing against each other tightly, the terrifying formation still stretches to the horizon, and the cleaners can't even see where the end is. Under such extreme suppression by numbers, ordinary personal abilities become meaningless. No matter how strong the power or how indomitable the will, facing millions of nightmares' mental assaults will only result in the collapse of will and the breakdown of spirit. Goddess! Seeing the road to the assessment location completely blocked and the plan to raid the ice city shattered, Abigail couldn't help but bite her lip and shout towards the conch flickering with colorful light. What is going on up ahead? Why are so many nightmares gathered here? You ask me? I'd love to know myself. With the originally smooth plan suddenly encountering changes, the goddess of pleasure dreams couldn't help but clench her fist, angrily waving several times inside the conch, and then stiffly spoke to Persuade. No need to worry, this is also part of the assessment. Part of the assessment? Upon hearing the words of the goddess of pleasure dreams, the cleaners couldn't help but look at each other in confusion. Cleaners versus exactly 1 million nightmares? What kind of assessment is this? Testing the speed of everyone's death? Rest assured, the Cleanup Bureau will not let you die in vain. Facing possibly the only opportunity of her life, and most likely the last chance to ascend to the divine position again, the goddess of pleasure dreams was truly unwilling to give up. Yet she knew it was impossible to cajole the cleaners into sacrificing themselves. Through the conch, she spoke in a high and cold tone. These nightmares will not stay here forever. Just look at their formation. Something big is bound to happen soon, and at that time will be your opportunity to pass through amidst the chaos. Something big will happen soon, because there was a layer of conch shell between the goddess of pleasure dreams and them, preventing them from seeing her jumping anxiously, plus the fact that the initiative to charge into the fray was in their own hands. The cleaners didn't immediately retreat. Instead, they stayed in a position where they wouldn't be discovered, laying down abnormal objects for monitoring and waited with skepticism. Indeed, the development of the situation was as the goddess of pleasure dreams said. The military-like confrontation of the nightmares didn't maintain for too long. Before long, a nightmare on the side with fewer numbers, whose face was unclear, stood up and shouted sharply at the opposite side. Snow Lady has ordered. Recent movements should not leave their base casually. What are you gathering for? What do we want to do? On the side that was shouted at, a nightmare resembling a scarecrow wobbly stepped out and replied with a cold sneer. Of course it's to restore order. We want to destroy that damn strange city. Then we'll execute you scoundrels who betrayed Lord King of Nightmares. You, all 7 nightmare messengers chosen by the King of Nightmares are on our side. You are the trait. Bah! What dog-shit messengers. The critique from the unclear-faced nightmare seemed to have the opposite effect. A colossal shark nightmare rose its head from the nightmare river and shouted with murderous intent, exposing its mouth full of sharp teeth. Even the King of Nightmares was killed by the Cleanup Bureau, so why did they all survive? In my opinion, it was them who sold out the King of Nightmares. Yes, if they were innocent, the King of Nightmares would definitely not have died. Slaughter these traitors. Destroy Ice City. You love me. I love you, Ice. Oh, execute them. You are simply unreasonable. Facing the increasingly frenzied enemies, the unclear-faced nightmare trembled with anger, cursing angrily. The commands from the nightmare emissaries are equivalent to the commands from the King of Nightmares. You are the ones defying the King of Nightmares. Heh, if the command truly is from the King of Nightmares, then we would naturally not defy it. The Scarecrow Nightmare sneered upon hearing this and raspily questioned. But the King of Nightmares has yet to revive. So, these orders you've received recently, are they really from the Nightmare emissaries, or from Leon, the destroyer of the Dream Realm? Ah? Upon hearing the Scarecrow Nightmare's question, Leon, who was standing behind the cleaners watching the live broadcast of a Scorpio branch cleaner, was momentarily stunned. No, how did this involve me? Well, seeing the cleaners turn their heads uniformly to look at him upon hearing his name, Leon couldn't help but smile awkwardly. I've been out on fieldwork with the Scorpio branch for over a month now and have never been to the Dream Realm. Maybe it's a namesake. As the cleaners looked on skeptically, the argument in the live broadcast grew increasingly fierce. When we entered that singing Osmanthus city last time, I felt something was off. Raising his shark fin arm and pointing toward the faintly visible Mishua city in the distance, the Shark Nightmare bellowed ferociously. You claim to remain loyal to the King of Nightmares. So why aren't there offerings for the King of Nightmares in that cursed ghost city? Instead, it's full of statues of that destroyer Leon. There is, of course, a reason for that. The indistinct nightmare shouted angrily. The thicker the fear in the demonic soul abyss, the quicker the King of Nightmares will revive. Who in the entire Dream Realm doesn't fear the destroyer? We've built so many statues of Leon to gather the Dream Realm's fear of him, to hasten the revival of the King of Nightmares. But this is the deepest part of the demonic soul abyss, the very source of the Nightmare River. The Scarecrow Nightmare, swinging its withered body, shouted wrathfully. The King of Nightmares slumbers in the Nightmare River and will awaken from here in the future. Yet you build the statue of his murderer right at the source of the Nightmare River. It's blatant sacrilege. This, while it may be somewhat disrespectful, it's the only way to ensure the King of Nightmares awakens soon. Enough nonsense. You are the damned rebels. Those destroyer statues are the biggest evidence. Apparently tired of their explanations, the Scarecrow Nightmare sneered, raising its dried arms, motioning vigorously to the hundreds of thousands of nightmares poised to strike behind it. Attack! Show me the deepest fears you rebels hold within. Very well. Realizing persuasion was futile, the indistinct nightmare retreated into their ranks with a sour face, following promptly by raising its arms as well. Since you're so stubborn, let the demonic soul abyss determine right from wrong by the way of the nightmares. As negotiations broke down completely, a million nightmares yelled in unison and simultaneously ceased their resistance to the demonic soul abyss, unleashing their innermost fears, with billowing black smoke surging from each nightmare, rising up into the sky. Subsequently, under the utterly baffled gazes of the cleaners, two familiar colossal figures silently coalesced, brimming with a maddening aura of destruction, standing chest-crossed in opposition, staring at each other with murderous intent. Heh! Not much of a challenge. The giant Leon on the left smirked contemptuously, lifting his head, speaking in unison with the Scarecrow beneath Leon's feet. Is this the extent of your fear? Humph! It's just because there are so many of you. The slightly smaller but seemingly more solid giant Leon on the right snorted angrily, lifting his head arrogantly as well. When it comes to fear of the destroyer, we far surpass you all. This isn't right. If you're going to have a civil war, just have a proper civil war. What the heck is this? Seeing two versions of himself in the distance, with one hovering in the sky and the other standing on a dark river while trading insults, Leon was utterly speechless. The cleaners witnessing the nightmare civil war were even more bewildered than he was. If this so-called destroyer Leon just shares your name, then how do you explain these two? Not only do they have your name, but they also look just like you, right? I apologize for this. Having just told a lie not long ago, Leon found himself exposed by the nightmares. Faced with the strange looks from his fellow cleaners, Leon, feeling a bit embarrassed, awkwardly explained, "I honestly didn't intend to hide this. It's mainly because this matter is related to a 4th-level confidentiality mission, which requires Division Chief-level access to review. If I were to directly explain it to you, it would be a violation. But given the situation at hand, it seems there's no difference whether I hide it or not. In short, although I've only been to the Dream Realm once, the destroyer the nightmares refer to is indeed me. 4th level, involving the true god. Were you there when the King of Nightmares was taken down?" Looking at the two Leons in the distance who started fighting after trading a few more insults, the cleaners exchanged puzzled glances, and someone couldn't help but ask, "Why are you called the Destroyer then? Can you talk about that?" "I think I can." Upon hearing the question, Leon scratched the back of his head, then uncertainly replied, "Excluding the parts involving the true god, it's basically because I acquired a rather dangerous abnormal object from the Scorpio branch chief, enhanced it a bit, and tossed it into the Dream Realm, causing significant damage, so the Dream Realm is somewhat afraid I might come back again." Fear throughout the entire Dream Realm. What exactly did you do? Leon's hesitant attitude only piqued greater curiosity. Even Abigail, who'd been avoiding Leon due to nearly being devoured, couldn't resist asking, "Can you briefly explain what kind of damage you caused?" Briefly speaking, Leon thought for a moment, then raised a hand, somewhat ashamedly saying, "The disaster I caused was about this big." A hand, does that mean 5? After pondering for a moment, Abigail cautiously probed, "Did the thing you threw into the Dream Realm affect 5 million Dream Realm creatures?" "Ah." Seeing Leon's speechless expression, Abigail was astounded. 50 million? "No," Leon awkwardly replied. "Half the Dream Realm, 50%. Confronted with this unexpectedly yet bizarrely logical answer, over 400 cleaners collectively gasped in shock. Even the goddess of pleasure dreams hiding in the conch couldn't maintain her composure. "Indeed, it's not the wrong name, just the wrong nickname. You truly live up to being the Dream Realm Destroyer." "It's not entirely my fault, though." Seeing the increasingly odd looks from the cleaners, Leon swiftly chose to deflect responsibility. The thing that destroyed the Dream Realm was something brought by Scorpio Branch Chief Edward, and the mark used to enhance it was given by the Archer Director. I just did a little handling. So, the ones truly responsible for half the Dream Realm's destruction were the Scorpio Branch's Chief and the Cleanup Bureau's Archer Director? After hearing Leon's explanation, the cleaners remained skeptical, while the goddess of pleasure dreams in the conch secretly heaved a sigh of relief. From the years of serving Director Pisces, she had grown familiar with the Archer Director's conduct, which was always extremely tough on the outside and often employed an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth tactics. Presumably, the King of Nightmares did something that completely infuriated the Archer Director, who in turn sought to teach the king a harsh lesson through this 3rd-level cleaner by releasing an abnormal object targeting the Dream Realm. Yes, that must be it. After all, if this man named Leon were truly so powerful, how could he still be a 3rd-level cleaner? And why would he participate in this kind of promotion examination? Having found a rational explanation for the Destroyer event, the relieved goddess of pleasure dreams cleared her throat and commanded in a stern tone, "All right, the nightmares are in chaos now, and it's time for you to continue the examination. Yes, now it really looks like there's a chance to pass." Upon hearing the reminder from the goddess of pleasure dreams, the cleaners immediately sprang into action, taking out their abnormal objects. Group acceleration, aura concealment, invisibility, environmental disguise. One by one, the diverse abnormal objects were taken out, and the assault teams, who had been waiting for some time, finally began to move again, stealthily heading for the feet of the big Leon. Meanwhile, the internal battle within the nightmare troops had reached a boiling point. The ordinary nightmares below were desperately slaughtering each other, their grotesque and bizarre limbs falling like raindrops. Every second, hundreds of nightmares were shattered, transforming into purest fear, merging into the Nightmare River below their feet. Above them, the Nightmare leaders were commanding the giant Leons, formed by the fear of countless nightmares, furiously attacking each other, sometimes even biting and tearing. Later on, the two giant Leons just grappled and rolled together, strangling each other and trading blows. This is just bonkers. Watching the two gigantic Leons, who had his face but fought like street thugs in the ugliest manner, the real Leon couldn't help but darken his expression, instinctively wanting to rush out and teach these bastards a lesson. Alas, despite being the real deal, these two imposters, engaged in chaotic fighting, bore the will of hundreds of thousands of nightmares. Just being stepped on by them means undergoing over 100,000 mental assaults. He wasn't in a position to provoke them. No choice. Fists aren't big enough. I'll hold back. With a stone-cold face, Leon blended into the back of the group, passing through the fiercely battling nightmare troops, moving past the deafening yet absurdly chaotic battlefield, finally arriving at the deepest part of the demonic soul abyss, facing the red and white giant city. Leon let out a long sigh of relief. Finally arrived. There were too many chaotic events in this promotion examination that left one feeling uncertain, but with the Snow Maiden in the ice castle, he finally felt he had a reliable ally. And just as Leon breathed a sigh of relief, the goddess hiding within the conch similarly relaxed, a confident smile reappearing on her face. Indeed, the most crucial ability a god must possess is keeping a cool head. Although the plan had significant setbacks, encountering a massive nightmare obstruction in a critical area, her strong composure ensured she didn't display any weaknesses, successfully stabilizing the situation. Next, as long as she leads this cleaner, whom she'd managed to appease, into the ice castle, she could… Why is the castle closed? No way. Having found the gates of the ice cream castle and furiously rammed them for quite a while to no avail, the bull-horned man, exhausted and frustrated, had to grudgingly step back, panting heavily. Even if it were a door made of pure gold, I should have been able to crash through it. This door won't open at all. I can't get in either. After the bull-horned man's attempts, a cleaner from the Pisces branch also shook his head and sighed. Though this giant city can be seen and touched, it doesn't exist in a physical sense. It is a dream realm creation with no substance, so my pass token has no effect on it. My abnormal object is ineffective too. The outer wall of this city, one might say, is not a city wall but rather an outer barrier of a special dream. My carriage simply can't get through. Same here. You love me, I love you, Mimi. Quick, get someone who understands souls to pull him back. He's being corroded by this dream. After a chaotic scramble, the cleaners stared at the firmly closed gates of the ice cream castle, unable to find their way in. They turned their gaze to the seven-colored conch above, hoping to get advice from the temporary invigilator on how to enter the ice cream castle. However, the goddess of pleasure dreams, who had supposedly signed a contract with the Bureau, seemed to consider entering as part of the examination and ignored the plight they faced. The cleaners had no choice but to give up external aid and began to discuss amongst themselves. Why don't we try flying up to see if that works? A cleaner with a bird beak suggested. We can't enter from the front, but maybe we can from above. I noticed there's nothing blocking the top of this city. How could that be? The Pisces branch cleaner who spoke earlier retorted. Didn't I already mention? This city looks like a city, but it's actually a special dream. Even if there's nothing blocking the top, you still can't get in. Then from below. Below is the same. Since changing direction doesn't work, why not try my method? A cleaner from the Lion Subbureau stood up with a serious expression. Though I got sucked in for those few seconds, I figured out the core of this dream. As long as everyone follows my way, we'll definitely make a sweet entry. Come on. Do as I do, you love me. I love… Sorry. After knocking out his companion who proposed singing the King of Ice Cream theme together, another cleaner from the Lion Subbureau blushed and apologized. He just woke up. I thought he was fine. Didn't expect. Drag him away. Don't let him mess around. After dragging off the cleaner whose mind was sweetened by Ice Cream Castle, the remaining cleaners continued their strategy meeting, trying to find a way into the castle. Yet this towering red and white giant city was truly unusually solid. Even though the cleaners used all their skills, they were still blocked outside, unable to make any progress. Several cleaners, relying on their extraordinary abilities, tried to rush in without thinking, but were now hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, singing the King of Ice Cream melody sweetly under the castle's influence, impossible to pull back. And at this helpless moment, the duel between the two colossal Leons nearby was nearing its end. Prepare to die! Amidst a roar from a voice extremely familiar to the cleaners, the big Leon laughed wildly, using his greater size advantage to ride on the fallen small Leon and beat him severely, his two arms nearly creating afterimages. The small Leon, not willing to concede, quickly found a way to counter, delivering a powerful kick to big Leon, flipping him over, crushing thousands of average nightmares in the process. Yet, in terms of quantity and average strength, small Leon was clearly inferior, even though he continued to resist valiantly. He gradually faltered, the form of colossal Leon growing fainter, seemingly near complete vanishing. Ha ha ha! We're the winners! Grasping small Leon's legs, delivering a standard death spin, smashing nearly 10,000 average nightmares, the Scarecrow Nightmare at Big Leon's chest puffed out black smoke, weakly laughing wildly. You've lost. You traitors who betrayed the King of Nightmares have no chance anymore. Damn it! Facing the Scarecrow Nightmare's rampant malice, the Faceless Nightmare puffed out black smoke likewise, growling unwillingly. You only have a numerical advantage. If Mistress Snow Maiden or a few other envoys were here, if they were here, then we'd be the ones getting crushed. Frankly admitting the other's hypothetical scenario, the Scarecrow Nightmare puffed out another cloud of black smoke, then rebutted coldly. So what are they doing? Why don't you let them out to help you? What's the matter? Not speaking? Huh? Seeing his opponent turn silent, the Scarecrow Nightmare sneered coldly, then controlled Big Leon to leap up, delivering a crow-sitting plane dive, completely dispersing small Leon, then angrily shouted with red eyes, "Since you don't want to speak, let me speak for you. Those damn traitors aren't here, even sealed the Ice Cream Castle, allowing us to attack because they have something more important to do. They are desperately suppressing the revival of the King of Nightmares." Hearing the Scarecrow Nightmare's roar, the Faceless Nightmare suddenly jumped in shock, full of disbelief. You? How did you? How do I know? Of course I know. Disbanding the small Leon, controlling Big Leon, the Scarecrow Nightmare sneered. Because there aren't only 7 Nightmare envoys. There are 8 in total. I am the 8th one and also the first Nightmare envoy born. What? Wow. Unexpectedly, amid the lunatic duel behind, there's actually an additional branch in the plot. Leon and the cleaners couldn't help but turn their heads, surprised, toward the battlefield behind. As fellow Nightmare envoys granted by the King of Nightmares, what those 7 traitors are doing, no one knows better than me. Having defeated his opponent, the Scarecrow Nightmare, unaware that over 400 bystanders were observing from afar, gladly gazed down at his shocked opponent, sneering viciously. Due to Destroyer Leon's crazy actions, half the Dream Realm is flooded with boundless fear, and the King of Nightmares in Demonic Soul Abyss received unimaginable nutritious spoils. He should have awakened immediately. But, once I joyfully infiltrated that strange city, I found that the King of Nightmares not only failed to benefit but was subjected to unimaginable desecration and suppression. The Scarecrow Nightmare, growing more irate as he spoke, pointed at his silent opponent, angrily spat. You awful traitors, you're gathering the Dream Realm's creatures' dread towards the Destroyer, trying to condense this fear into a new Lord of Nightmares to replace the still slumbering King of Nightmares. You deserve to die. Is there really such a thing? After learning the real reason behind the closure of the Frosty Snow City from the mouth of the Scarecrow Nightmare, not only did the pupils of the cleaners start to shake madly, But even the goddess of pleasure dreams in the conch couldn't help but be shocked. The essence of those 8 nightmare envoys is that they are sacred spirits chosen by the King of Nightmares to help share his authority. Before the King of Nightmares revives, the authority of the nightmare naturally would be jointly managed by the 8 nightmare envoys. And now, among these real managers of nightmare authority, 7 out of 8 have reached a consensus to take advantage of the King of Nightmare's absence and press his grave flat, ready to replace him with a new boss, and this new boss, how can it be a third-level cleaner? Staring hard at the shell's hole, looking at the bewildered Leon outside, the goddess of pleasure dreams couldn't help but doubt the true purpose of this promotion assessment. The King of Nightmares has been taken down, so why were the 7 nightmare envoys able to return intact? Why would the nightmare envoys loyal to the King of Nightmares suddenly act collectively to overturn the King of Nightmares? And how can a seemingly ordinary third-level cleaner gain the support of the 7 nightmare envoys? Conspiracy. There must be a huge conspiracy in this. With a brain far surpassing the average god, the goddess of pleasure dreams swiftly discerned the sinister plot behind this promotion assessment orchestrated by the Cleanup Bureau. Rather than being called a promotion assessment, it might as well be said that this is the Cleanup Bureau's revenge against the King of Nightmares. The previous assault on the real world by the King of Nightmares during the overlap of the demonic soul abyss and reality had mostly infuriated the Cleanup Bureau. The tough Scorpio director sent someone to take down the King of Nightmares and even planned for a total eradication. The task of this third phase of the assessment is not to investigate the situation in Frosty Snow City, but to head an invasion into the Dream Realm led by the Pisces director to directly force the replacement of the Lord of Nightmares. The true purpose behind this assessment arranged by the Cleanup Bureau should be to solve the issue of the King of Nightmares once and for all and to intimidate other potential threats. However, due to an unexpected incident concerning the Pisces director, the plan had to be suspended midway. As for being selected by the upper management of the Cleanup Bureau to replace the King of Nightmares to bear the Nightmare Authority and prevent imbalance in the Dream Realm, why is it that such a weak third-level cleaner? What the Cleanup Bureau wants is simply an obedient puppet, and the weaker the puppet, the easier it is to control. With the soul intensity of this so-called Destroyer Leon, without the support of the Cleanup Bureau, he would be overthrown by those nightmare envoys in no time. Even if he ascends to godhood, he would have to align with the Cleanup Bureau for hundreds of years, at least to remain under their control. Damn it! His luck is just too good. Looking at Leon outside, still staring in shock at the distant Scarecrow nightmare, the goddess of pleasure dreams couldn't help but feel a mixed array of emotions. If this is accomplished by those 7 nightmare envoys, then the new Leon formed by combining 7/8 of the nightmares and a significant amount of fear from the Dream Realm's entities is almost certain to replace the King of Nightmares and become the new Lord of Nightmares. At that time, this luck-stricken human only needs to pay a small price to merge voluntarily with the created new Leon and almost immediately ascend to godhood effortlessly. As a former true god, I have endured under the Pisces director for decades, barely getting a chance to ascend again, and I still have to maintain the facade cautiously, fearing that these cleaners may uncover my disguise. But this fool with a stupid expression hasn't done anything. Yet because of his luck, he simply handed the opportunity I've longed for on a silver platter, ready to ascend effortlessly. How unfair fate is. However, contrary to the goddess of pleasure dreams assumptions, once Leon learned what the Snow Maiden and other nightmare envoys were planning, he wasn't thrilled about potentially ascending to godhood. Instead, he sensed something was terribly wrong. Becoming the Lord of Nightmares is impossible, absolutely impossible in this lifetime. I belong to the Cleanup Bureau, where my prospects are incredibly vast, and I've become known up and down the ranks. Even with poor luck, a position as a Yellow Road Director is inevitable, so how could I switch to the Dream Realm for a lousy Lord of Nightmares position? Even if the Destroyer Leon, created by the Snow Maiden and others, is just a counterfeit formed by collecting fear from Dream Realm entities and combining it with the Nightmare Authority, who knows what impact it could have on me. Therefore, I need to think of a way to mess this up. Everyone. After subconsciously glancing at Senior Amin's position, Leon immediately stepped forward in front of the cleaners and loudly addressed everyone. It seems that there's an internal strife among the Nightmare Envoys, And we should seize this opportunity to take action immediately. Seize this opportunity. Upon hearing Leon's words, the cleaners couldn't help but exchange glances. Then someone knowledgeable couldn't help but stand out, asking in a peculiar tone, "Are you saying you want to use this opportunity to replace the King of Nightmares and become the new Lord of Nightmares?" "Of course not." Leon shook his head without hesitation and said, "I'm a cleaner of the Cleanup Bureau. How could I become the Lord of Nightmares in the Dream Realm? But this is an opportunity to directly become a god and achieve immortality." Another knowledgeable cleaner couldn't help but say with envy, "The King of Nightmares hasn't revived yet and is incapable of resisting, with 7 out of 8 nightmare envoys supporting you. You only need to unite with the other created you." "But will I still be me then?" Pointing to the back, controlled by the Scarecrow Nightmare, a giant Leon, laughing wildly while violently destroying the opposing nightmares, the real Leon said with disdain, "I'd rather live as myself for a few decades happily than become that stupid form just to live forever." "Well, that's true. But after all, it's an opportunity for immortality. Don't you have any longing for it?" Seeing Leon unwavering in the face of the allure of immortality, the cleaners couldn't help but look at him with respect. Even Abigail, who had been too intimidated to approach him, couldn't help but speak with slight reverence. "Though I would make the same choice, I'm sure I wouldn't be as you. What are you doing? I need to quickly go in and stop them." Pointing to the sealed door of Frosty Snow City, Leon took out the cutting silver dagger and said apologetically amidst the terrified expressions of the cleaners, "But I just tried, and I think it would take about 59 Leon value to successfully cut open this dream realm, so sorry guys." "No, why are you starting to order food again?" Seeing Leon, who had grabbed Abigail's arm and raised a knife with an apologetic expression, the cleaners, who had just had a bit of admiration for him, suddenly felt their knees go weak, and their understanding of Leon deepened another level. This B-rank operative from the Virgin Branch, despite having an extremely strong will that could even resist the temptation of immortality, it seems like he doesn't want to resist the temptation of eating people at all. "Wait, hold on a second." Just as Abigail, pale-faced and trembling, was about to desperately plead, another cleaner from the Scorpio branch rushed out, clinging to Leon's arm, and said with forced courage, "We haven't reached that point yet. Maybe there's another way." Leon, being pulled, frowned, and said somewhat surprised, "Do you have a way to get inside?" "I don't. But there must be one." "Sorry, but there really isn't any." Upon hearing this, Leon shook his head and said, "I just checked it out. Not only does this Mishua Ice City gathering the power of 7 nightmare envoys, but it also has the blessing of Nightmare Authority and the support from the source of the Nightmare River. If we simply talk about the shell strength, it's almost similar to a real plane. This kind of special dreamscape below the true God level, there's almost no solution. So no matter what abnormal object you have, as long as the Leon value doesn't meet the criteria, it's impossible to break it. So let me handle it. By the way, you look like—" No. There must be a way. I know the way. In this situation, one can only say that people often find their potential when pushed to the brink." Facing the imminent buffet, with Leon even targeting him, this cleaner from the Scorpio branch almost had a sudden enlightenment and quickly shouted loudly, "We can still wait for that strawman to come over." "Strawman? That nightmare envoy?" Upon hearing the reminder from the Scorpio branch cleaner, Leon couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly and immediately reacted. The Mishua Ice City in front of them was created by nightmare envoys who wield nightmare authority. And among them, one of the 8 nightmare envoys, the Strawman Nightmare, who led a rebellion against the Snow Maidens, might indeed have a way to break through Mishua Ice City. Right. He's right. We can wait a bit. Wait until that nightmare arrives. There's really a chance. You let her go first. No need to be this extreme. It's almost over there. It's fine to wait a little." Under the anxious gaze of the cleaners, Leon hesitated slightly. Though he still held on to Abigail, he finally lowered the knife in his hand. Putting down the knife is good. It's good to put down the knife. Finally calming the biggest bomb. The weary cleaners couldn't help but regret participating in the assessment while fervently praying in their hearts, hoping that damn Strawman won't mess up. After all, if that Strawman nightmare can't enter Mishua Ice City either, then their safe route home is entirely cut off, and they can only accompany this dangerous lunatic in a great escape in the perilous demonic soul abyss. As for his repeated promise that being eaten would lead to being spat out whole again without issue, would you dare to believe it if you were in their shoes? Soon, in the midst of the cleaners' fervent prayers, the distant Strawman nightmare finally cleaned up the aftermath, controlling the giant Leon to hurry over, and then shouted towards the towering Mishuai city. Damn traitor! Get out here now! It's over. Hearing the Strawman nightmare's words, the faces of over 400 cleaners instantly turned ashen. This guy clearly showed an angry face but didn't directly attack the city. Instead, it started shouting outside. Doesn't this mean it also doesn't have a way to storm into the city? Unaware that its expressions and actions could unsettle so many people, the Strawman nightmare snorted after shouting a few unanswered shouts and continued to threaten. If you don't come out, then I'm coming in. Phew, that scared us. Upon hearing this, the cleaners couldn't help but exhale heavily, their hearts that had jumped into their throats finally settling back down into their chests, while they viciously made a note against the Strawman nightmare. If it could break the city, why not do it quickly instead of arguing, making us all anxious? Damn it, you better wait. Under the spiteful gaze of the cleaners, the Strawman nightmare finally ceased its babbling and controlled the giant Leon to stretch out its arms, embracing the outer wall of Mishua Ice City. Soon after, the previously calm Nightmare River beneath everyone's feet suddenly surged, as about 1/8 of the black water, carrying countless fragmented and dim dreams, climbed up along the giant Leon's legs, gradually enveloping him. Quick! It's almost a success. Put in more effort. With the Strawman nightmare's urging, the nightmares under its control began strengthening their inner fears, and the previously immovable red and white giant city suddenly started shaking violently. As the giant Leon applied more force, the black river beneath that had been stabilizing the giant city started surging, causing the red and white giant city settled on the river surface to sway, eventually breaking apart. It worked. It worked. Seeing Mishua Ice City finally break open, revealing the inside of the dream realm, not only were the nightmares led by the Strawman Jubilant, even the hidden cleaners couldn't help but cheer along. If this damn city was broken by the Strawman, whether the task would be completed was uncertain, but at least their lives were saved, no longer constantly worried over. And in this moment of united hope, several desperate cries suddenly echoed from the fractured Mishua Ice City. No! 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 Damn it! What are you doing? Stop! Quickly stop! Hee hee! It's you who should stop! Controlling the giant Leon's arms, with a powerful breath, directly tore the outer shell of Mishua Ice City apart, and seeing the dream realm in front of him gradually shattering, the Strawman nightmare couldn't help but laugh towards the sky. You damn traitors are finished. So many nightmares sent back to the nightmare source by me, the King of Nightmares Lord has regained nourishment, and will soon revive you. You? Who are you? You are that nightmare envoy who escaped earlier, aren't you? Under the fearful gaze of the Strawman nightmare, Leon with a bright mirror crown on his head, and a body enveloped in deep gray mist, slowly walked out from the forcibly torn dream, nodding with appreciation towards it, and said, "Well done. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't know how long I'd be trapped by them. So, we actually arrived too late." Looking at Leon, dressed in a costume that should belong to the King of Nightmares, smiling as he walked out of the ice cream castle, everyone outside the city was instantly dumbfounded. The nightmare scarecrow that tore open the ice cream castle was even more defenseless and stammered, What about them? We were so close to success." The swamp serpent, covered in bite marks, emerged from the shattered dream realm, its snake eyes blazing as it roared furiously. "You damn fool! How dare you let him out?" The green wave sea monster, covered in wounds, also chased out from the fractured dream realm and crashed into the nightmare river. Then said with a face full of grief, "It's over. This time it's completely over. Stop the nonsense. Act quickly." The dune giant worm, half withered, emerged from the dream realm, blocking the side of Nightmare Leon, and shouted with full caution, "Stop him. He hasn't escaped yet. We still have a chance to—" Ah! Along with a scream, numerous strange beetles of black and gold colors crawled out from the body of the dune giant worm, starting to ravenously eat its still vibrant side. It fell to the ground in pain, rolling in a display of dying throes. If not for a gust of cold wind carrying joyful songs freezing the emerging beetles in time, the massive body of the dune giant worm likely wouldn't last long before being completely consumed. You all, don't get it wrong. Putting down the fingers pointing at the dune giant worm, Nightmare Leon blinked his pupils, which were black and gold like beetle shells, and spoke slowly. "The reason I am not running is not because I cannot run, but because there's no need. From the moment I open my eyes, I, Leon Lane, the Dream Realm Destroyer born from the fear of the entire Dream Realm, have been the strongest nightmare in the demonic soul abyss. Even if I do nothing now, the authority of nightmare you all are wielding will naturally flow towards me, towards the hearts of all living beings in the Dream Realm, representing the supreme terror and the only nightmare." "Bro, why are you starting this act?" Looking at Nightmare Leon standing far away with his head held high, eyes closed, arms outspread, putting on a stance of, "I am the king of the world." The real Leon felt so embarrassed he couldn't stand it, the toes in his shoes sparking from the awkwardness. Seeing someone with your face and body, in gaudy clothes, filled with an overbearing confidence, speaking cringe-worthy fierce words, this experience is truly incredibly unbearable. It was reminiscent of when you were a grade schooler, secretly writing world domination plans in your homework book and then having someone publicly reveal them as if being executed in shame. Just as Leon was overwhelmed with awkwardness, wishing he could dig a hole beneath his feet to escape to the Earth's core, the Scarecrow Nightmare, completely bewildered by the sudden situation, finally managed to recover. And seeing Nightmare Leon's incredibly familiar attire and the shiny mirror crown on his head, the Scarecrow Nightmare became furious, shouting aloud, "You scoundrel! Why do you wear the crown belonging to the King of Nightmares? You mean this?" Upon hearing the Scarecrow Nightmare's words, Nightmare Leon touched the crown with his hand, then looked at the Scarecrow, whose eyes were filled with fear, and answered with a smile. "It is somewhat strange that the crown supposed to belong to the King of Nightmares appears on my head? What do you think is the reason?" "I think it's because, though having a faint suspicion in his heart, he dared not consider that terrifying answer." Looking at Nightmare Leon's face filled with audacious laughter, the Scarecrow Nightmare felt his heart shatter and roared loudly, controlling the giant Leon to punch heavily. "What happened to the King of Nightmares? What did you do to him?" Ah! Yet bizarrely, the terrifying punch, formed by the fear of hundreds of thousands of nightmares and powerful enough to make the true god retreat temporarily, turned out to be less than a gentle breeze brushing against Nightmare Leon's face. The Scarecrow Nightmare's mighty attack, before even reaching Nightmare Leon, had already disintegrated into countless streams of varying shades of black smoke, desperately escaping from Nightmare Leon's side, not daring to linger even a moment. And with each futile effort, the giant Leon, led by the Scarecrow Nightmare, began to exhibit changes, inching closer towards Nightmare Leon. In the end, the giant Leon even stopped the attack entirely, standing quietly on the surface of the Nightmare River, facing Nightmare Leon with a similarly eerie smile on his face. "Move! Please, move for me!" Seeing his greatest reliance unexpectedly lose control, unable to respond no matter how much he spurred it, and feeling the despairing pressure in front, the body of the Scarecrow Nightmare began trembling uncontrollably. It was at this time that Nightmare Leon, who had not retaliated and simply watched its resistance with laughter, suddenly spoke with a smile and praised, "Not bad, not bad. I admire your loyalty. Considering how faithful you are, I'll tell you about the king's situation, what he means, Could the King of Nightmares still be alive? Hearing Nightmare Leon's words, the Scarecrow Nightmare trembled all over, instinctively looking towards Nightmare Leon. In its eyes, which had 2 portions of expectation and 8 portions of fear, Nightmare Leon suddenly licked his lips and then pulled the corners of his mouth up, full of malice, whispering, "The King of Nightmares had a wonderful taste. I was very satisfied." Seeing Nightmare Leon's evil smile, along with the other 7 silent nightmare envoys in the distance, the Scarecrow Nightmare's last line of defense in its heart was utterly breached, and it fell to its knees with a thud. The rest, who had given up their fears and formed the giant Leon, also knelt simultaneously at its collapse, gazing with terror at the nightmare descending into reality, not daring to make even a slight move. "It's over." Feeling the authority of Nightmare flowing steadily towards him from the entire group of nightmares, Nightmare Leon couldn't help but exhibit a look of satisfaction, then walked leisurely to the fallen Scarecrow Nightmare. "Come." He extended his right hand to the fallen Scarecrow Nightmare, smiling as he said, "Their nightmare has long belonged to me. Now hand over your nightmare too." "You wish." Trembling as he opened Nightmare Leon's hand, the Scarecrow Nightmare spoke with resentment. "The King of Nightmares, even if you devoured the king and obtained all the nightmare, you are ultimately just a fake. What they fear is not you, this nightmare born from fear, but that true destroyer. Yes, I am indeed just a fake, a nightmare born from the Leon destroying the Dream Realm nightmare." Nightmare Leon nodded upon hearing this, then smiled and retorted, "But what difference does it make? Though I am a fake, the real destroyer won't suddenly arrive in the Dream Realm to fight me for the position of Lord of Nightmares. So, Leon watched as a group of nightmares appeared out of nowhere, surrounding him in perfect unison. His eyebrows slightly raised in surprise, and he exclaimed in astonishment, "Are you, humans? Prepare to die." Without any intention of engaging in idle talk with Nightmare Leon, adhering to the Cleanup Bureau's excellent tradition of acting first and explaining later, the cleaners picked up their gear without a word and charged, and began releasing abnormal objects. Once a desk mate with Leon, the bull-horned man let out a wild roar, his body suddenly swelling more than tenfold, charging directly at Nightmare Leon under a chaotic display of effects. Nightmare Leon's legs, at an unknown point, had turned to stone. Countless white feathers floated down from above, preemptively locking all possible paths of movement, and a scythe full of rust marks gently yet bloodily sliced open his throat. Cleanup Bureau cleaners? Why would there be cleaners in the demonic soul abyss? After having half his neck sliced open by the scythe, Nightmare Leon slightly raised his head, furrowed his brow, and the mirror crown atop his head flashed briefly. Immediately after, the charging bull-horned man paused mid-charge, and with a look of terror, fell headfirst into the pitch-black river, thrashing desperately. "No, no, you can't eat me." Meanwhile, other attacking cleaners were also instantly pulled into their own nightmares amid the flash of the mirror crown, collapsing to the ground and flailing and wailing. "Run! Leon's gone mad again. Director, I was wrong. I shouldn't have come. Help! Leon's eating people." With a casual counterattack from Nightmare Leon, the assault of over 400 cleaners collapsed in a flash. With the exception of 2 level 1 cleaners, they were utterly defeated. Having blocked the nightmare forcibly imposed by the mirror crown, Abigail and her companion's assault became even fiercer. Ubiquitous rusted scythes emerged and dove back under Nightmare Leon's skin like fish swimming freely in his flesh, cutting his body with countless wounds. Meanwhile, not a single drop of blood flowed from Nightmare Leon's deeply cut body. Instead, it was as if a torn feather pillow burst, releasing a large amount of tiny white fluff that tangled with the gray mist around him, emitting a sizzling sound like hot oil hitting water. "Is that all?" Glancing at the strange changes occurring on his body, Nightmare Leon didn't even bother to show any expression as he grasped the gray mist covering himself and brushed it off lightly as if dusting off powder. Poof! The gray mist that had been loosely surrounding him suddenly solidified, transforming into a gray robe, while the hideous wounds, as if dust on clothing, were swept away by Nightmare Leon, turning into broken little nightmares that fell into the Nightmare River below. Boring. After giving the full-blown attack of the 2 Level 1 cleaners a dismissive evaluation, Nightmare Leon squinted his eyes slightly and warned, "Listen up, although I haven't fully obtained all the Nightmare authority. I've already traversed the difference between man and God, beyond what you can afford to provoke. Likewise, I have no intention of bothering the cleanup bureau and creating trouble for myself. So I'm willing to give you a chance, regardless of how you came to be here. As long as you immediately get out of my territory, I can spare you, bastards." With an angry roar, seemingly realizing something was wrong, Nightmare Leon quickly withdrew. However, a silver arm holding a small knife suddenly emerged from the blade of the scythe, slicing through the crown atop his head. Before he could react, it grabbed the fallen half of the crown and disappeared into the mirror-like blade. It's better to ambush after all. Taking advantage of the Minosil Cursed Mercury's rapid effect, after destroying the crown on Nightmare Leon's head in a single blow, Leon, half-coated with Cursed Mercury, couldn't help but relax slightly in expression. While Nightmare Leon was wasting time talking nonsense with the Scarecrow Nightmare, the cleaners wouldn't just stand idly by but instead immediately seized the opportunity to hold a quick pre-battle meeting to figure out how to kill this nightmare on its way to godhood, with the strike that just severed the mirror crown being the biggest success of that brief meeting. Leon had vivid memories of the mirror crown on Nightmare Leon's head, as it was that same crown that induced the nightmare, driving him to a fit of rage that led to the destruction of half the dream realm. Even knowing later that the nightmare wasn't real, it still left his mood downcast for quite a while. Since there was now a chance to destroy one of Nightmare Leon's special weapons through an ambush, Leon naturally chose the crown he had a grudge against. After taking down the crown that could forcibly induce dreams over an area, the cleaners, who would have been wiped out instantly, now had a chance to utilize their abilities. Abigail, seeing the success of the crown-slaying plan, Mason, who used the scythe to create an opportunity for Leon, was overjoyed. Before he could even voice his urging, a clear, castrato-like singing voice came from Abigail's hiding spot. "Don't eat me. The director will avenge me. You, I've already peed my pants and you're still going to eat me? You really aren't picky." With the mirror crown shattered, the peaceful singing voice spread, and the cleaners who had been dragged into nightmares quickly broke free from the nightmares where they were chased madly by Leon, waking up one after another. As for Nightmare Leon, who had witnessed all this, his expression instantly turned indescribable. Anger, resentment, surprise, shock, all sorts of complex emotions flashed across his face. Just as his expression was about to morph into unfathomable fury, preparing to risk provoking a vendetta from the cleanup bureau just to teach these damn humans a lesson, a highly familiar figure suddenly unveiled a non-existent strange curtain, appearing before Nightmare Leon's eyes. "You've already lost." Just as Leon was secretly signaling to other cleaners, preparing to take advantage of the situation with a few parting remarks and release more curses, Nightmare Leon caught sight of him and suddenly shuddered before turning and fleeing without hesitation. "Can't fight. I'm leaving." Watching as his mirror image, who had been so arrogant just moments ago, fled without even leaving a harsh word, Leon couldn't help but feel a twinge of embarrassment. This just has to be me, no doubt about it, and not to mention, I've truly mastered this tactical style where realizing things have gone wrong means a strategic retreat. Fighting is impossible. It will be impossible for this lifetime. If I really stay to fight him, then this lifetime might as well end here. At the instant of locking eyes with the real Leon, Nightmare Leon, who was only 1/8 away from completely ascending to a god, immediately understood that there was only one way out. Run now. The source of Nightmare Leon's birth is the entire dream realm sphere of Destroyer Leon, which is created by the collective cognition and imagination of all dream realm creatures about Destroyer Leon. In other words, Nightmare Leon does not have the genuine Leon's memories or abilities, but is merely a false image conjured up by the dream realm creatures. This in itself is not much of an issue, since the vast majority of nightmares are born from imagination. The Snow Maiden was born from the folk tales circulating in the Northern Kingdom. As long as enough people know of her existence and continue to have nightmares featuring her, being born from imagination won't affect her becoming a nightmare messenger. But the biggest issue is, unlike the completely imagined Snow Maiden, the Destroyer Leon nightmare has a prototype. When the real Destroyer Leon appears, the imagined falsehood will inevitably gravitate towards truth. In the eye contact with the real one, Nightmare Leon immediately noticed the change in himself, understanding that the more intersection with the real deal, the more errors in himself would be corrected. The most deadly thing is, it's not even necessary to have real close contact as a counterfeit of the real one. Just knowing what the real Leon should be like, one's existence and thoughts will start to uncontrollably gravitate towards it, or rather, will, in another sense, be completely devoured by that real one. Stop! Only a fool would stop. Facing the shout coming from behind, Nightmare Leon, unwilling to lose his self, increased his speed instead of slowing down, desperately wanting to step out of the demonic soul abyss with one leap and escape the dream realm, never to return. However, at this moment, a massive indescribable fear, accompanied by the shouts from behind, suddenly seized his heart, instantly disrupting his control over his body, causing him to tumble and fall. Luckily, the Nightmare of Nightmares still worked on him. Watching the Nightmare Leon, whom he had just shouted at, suddenly fall headfirst in the distance, Leon, leading people in the chase, couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. The fear effect of Nightmares only works on dream realm creatures below true god level. And though this fake has already crossed the difference between man and god, even getting the special weapon belonging to the Lord of Nightmares, it ultimately lacks the final 1/8, failing to acquire the complete nightmare authority, belonging to one who has crossed but not entirely, the heel still lingering on the human side, still within the scope below the true god, hence can still be, wow. In Leon's speechless gaze, distant Nightmare Leon spread the gray robe and actually bounced out a scene of himself filled with fear, then crawled up and continued his mad flight into the distance. That should be the effect of that gray robe. At some unknown time, Dame Poop had grabbed the hand of the Pisces director and came to stand behind Leon, gently reminding, "The gray robe of the King of Nightmares can turn all unfavorable situations into nightmares and bounce them away. In other words, without overwhelming power or targeted abnormal objects, it is impossible to capture or control it." Amin Sr. Leon heard this, frowned, and then while chasing, asked, "What should we do then?" "We just need to keep up with him. Don't let him completely escape, and that's enough." Dame Poop answered calmly. The cleaner from Pisces branch mentioned they have an abnormal object called the mental roulette that can roughly monitor several non-material realms. And there are 9 cleaners from Pisces branch participating in this assessment. The director of Pisces branch, when not busy, will surely sneak to cheat and peek at the progress of her subordinates' assessments. If we can keep following, not letting this new Lord of Nightmares escape, she will surely notice the anomaly, and when she reports it to the headquarters, wait for reinforcement to arrive, this nightmare will have nowhere to escape. Is this actually possible? After glancing at Amin Sr., Leon silently nodded his head, acknowledged the method she proposed, and quickly informed all cleaners to abandon ineffective offensive abnormal objects, shift focus to entanglement and consumption, and forced Nightmare Leon to continuously use the gray robe to remove abnormal states. And after several attempts, Nightmare Leon, desperately fleeing ahead, also noticed the cleaners' tactical shift, and from their effort to conserve energy, he vaguely guessed Leon and others might be waiting for reinforcements. His expression suddenly became anxious. "Stop chasing. You'd better not push me. If you keep chasing, don't blame me for getting ruthless." Facing the warnings from Nightmare Leon, thoroughly versed in the Emma Bible, naturally would not heed such meaningless exchanges, and with him not responding, naturally, none of the cleaners spoke. All 400 just kept their mouths shut and pursued ferociously like Leon. Under this oppressive full silence pursuit, with his communication request, never getting a response, Nightmare Leon gritted his teeth, decisively abandoned the last bit of wishful thinking, and suddenly turned back. "Spread out. seeing Nightmare Leon seemingly want to jump the wall out of desperation. Abigail quickly sounded the warning, then prepared to purify the nightmare. However, a situation that stunned all cleaners occurred. Nightmare Leon coming back didn't attack the cleaners but instead suddenly enlarged tens of times, grabbed the trembling nightmare nearby, and began frantically stuffing it into his mouth. Oh? This just proves, being a counterfeit of Leon, even the habit of liking to eat allies was retained? Bad. Stop him quickly. Having no time to care about the strange looks cleaners cast towards him, realizing Nightmare Leon's actions, Leon immediately responded, knowing this might be akin to the Snow Maiden summoning snow, a unique ability of Nightmare Leon. Though uncertain of the changes that will occur after consuming numerous nightmares, even a fool knows at this moment, the thing the enemy most wants to do is definitely something one must stop immediately. You only think you can stop me now? Too late. Noticing the actions of Leon and others, Nightmare Leon in his gluttonous revelry sneered, then slightly lifted the hem of his gray robe. In the shocked eyes of all, countless black gold beetles swarmed out from beneath his gray robe, like a living two-color insect carpet, instantly spreading across the surface of the Nightmare River. No! No! Lord of Nightmares! Spare me! Amidst the continuous screams and pleas for mercy from the nightmares, the supposedly extinct dream-eating anomalous carapace reappeared in another form within the demonic soul abyss, ravenously devouring all the gathered nightmares around it. And with the dual feasting from himself and the dream-eating anomalous carapace, the half-severed mirrored crown atop Nightmare Leon's head showed signs of faint restoration. I already warned you. Seeing the cleaners retreating in shock from the rapidly expanding sea of insects, the immensely enlarged Nightmare Leon snorted coldly with a sense of satisfaction, then accelerated his feasting once again. The earlier performance of these cleaners was most likely to stall until reinforcements arrived. The longer it dragged on, the less favorable the situation would be for him, but he couldn't escape now. If he turned back to fight the original, he would easily be slowly assimilated. Thus, his choice was reduced to only one path: directly consume massive amounts of nightmares born from nightmares, forcibly replenishing the remaining nightmare authority, and becoming a new Lord of Nightmares. Although completing nightmare authority this way required consuming an astonishing number of nightmares, likely enough to devour half the entire demonic soul abyss, it was all worth it. As long as he could completely transcend the difference between man and God and become an actual god, he would gain acknowledgement from the entire dream realm. At that point, he would be immune to assimilation from the original, becoming an invulnerable, genuine king of nightmares. With Nightmare Leon's all-out effort, using millions of nightmares gathered nearby as nourishment, the carpet of insects spreading from him began to grow exponentially. No matter how the cleaners tried to kill them, the black and gold beetles just multiplied endlessly. These bugs. There are too many. There's no end to them. We can't stop them. No, this can't go on. Amidst the cleaners' anxious responses, Leon looked at the endless black and gold beetles in front of him, and at the imposter already restoring the mirrored crown and undergoing a faint transformation. His fists clenched tightly. Senior Abigail. Ha! I'm sorry. When he called Abigail's name, Leon stood far away, but as he apologized with a regretful tone, he was already behind Abigail. Not again. Once again seized by the arm by Leon, Abigail, guessing what he intended, froze entirely. Big brother, this is the third time. What grudge do you have against me? With so many people around, why are you fixated on eating me? And can you do it quickly? If you're going to eat, just... Under the cleaner's shocked gazes, the once human-like Leon's body suddenly swelled dozens of times. His once clean, fair skin turning blood-red in an instant. A flood of seemingly endless blood flowed sticky and unceasingly from his facial skin downwards, gurgling into the black river water below, while an ancient gate dividing life and death began to open slowly behind him. Even while feasting in the dream realm, a non-material realm, could visions still appear. Taking a surprised glance at the looming death's door, due to the imposter appearing close to becoming a god, and the urgency of the situation, Leon didn't delve further and simply opened his mouth, tossing the screaming Abigail inside. He actually ate her. Even though they had been warned many times before, knowing Leon would gorge himself when pushed too far, the cleaners were still shocked witnessing him devour Abigail in one bite. However, what shocked them even more, it seemed like it wasn't enough. Grasping the also gigantic silver dagger of cutting, after exterminating a large swath of the insect sea stretching to his feet, Leon estimated the black and gold beetle's proliferation speed and couldn't help but sigh. Following this, his blood-stained giant figure vanished instantly, reappearing behind a fleeing second-level cleaner from the Ares branch, grabbing him in one fell swoop. "Sorry about this. Why are you apologizing? You clearly have no shame." Seized by Leon, the weeping cleaner from the Ares branch knew he was doomed, summoning his last courage to shout out before being tossed into Leon's mouth. "Ashima! Take them and run. Don't let—" "Ah!" With the Ares branch cleaner's last warning, the remaining cleaners reacted immediately, frantically fleeing away from Leon, relying on the acceleration provided by the cursed Mercury. But before they could start, Nightmare Leon, noticing the soul strength of the original soaring, had already begun forcibly deploying nightmares and black gold beetles for a joint massacre, attempting to kill these nourishments that would strengthen the original. Not just deploying nightmares, to increase the killing efficiency and prevent these nourishments from being consumed by the original, Nightmare Leon's hand again reached for the mirrored crown atop his head. Not good. Noticing Nightmare Leon's movement, Leon's gaze sharpened slightly, then activated the Unfair Serpent Pact, forcibly summoning the entire Cursed Mercury, and utilizing the high speed provided by the Cursed Mercury. He transformed into a silver streak, rushing to save any struggling cleaner, though his method of saving, "The safest place now is in my stomach." It's not just cleaners, even nightmares on the road to rescue. Nightmare Leon has protection from the gray fog robe. I can't hurt him for now. Eating the nightmares before him also slows his continued evolution. So, I must eat, and eat voraciously. Under the terrified eyes of the cleaners, the blood-covered Leon seemed genuinely deranged, just like his counterpart Nightmare Leon, stuffing whatever he caught into his mouth. Thanks to the speed boost from the Cursed Mercury, his eating pace wasn't much slower than Nightmare Leon's. In merely a few hours, faced with the two Leons' extreme devouring, the entire area around them was emptied, the originally gathered millions of nightmares eaten without a trace. Except for holding the Pisces director's hand with Amin and a trembling snail hiding behind them, the surroundings were devoured into silence by the two of them, leaving only the pitch-black waters of the Nightmare River. This damn lunatic! Watching him devour the cleaner first, then eat half of the nightmare, and now glaring at his own body with greed, Nightmare Leon's scalp prickled uncontrollably. Although he had long known that someone capable of destroying half the dream realm must be mentally unstable, the extent of Leon's madness was far beyond Nightmare Leon's imagination after actually encountering him. "Aren't you afraid of the Cleanup Bureau's retaliation for doing such things?" Growing increasingly anxious, Nightmare Leon sought other nightmares while taking the opportunity to launch a psychological attack. "If the people from the Cleanup Bureau find out that you killed so many cleaners at once, they'll definitely execute you on the spot. If you don't want to end up like that." "I don't understand what you're saying." After wiping the divine blood dripping down his face, Leon, seeing through the other's intentions, naturally wouldn't explain that the cleaners were still alive. Instead, he calmly countered, "The murderer who killed them is you. What does it have to do with me?" "You?" Upon hearing Leon's response, Nightmare Leon's eyes widened in shock. "So, he's planning to pin it all on me? Damn, how can this guy be even darker than me?" Seeing Leon's expression, as if he had everything under control, a somewhat exasperated Nightmare Leon took a deep breath, then turned and walked away, tracing back from the deepest part of the demonic soul abyss, starting to search for and consume nightmares to fill the missing nightmare authority. Determined to stick with him, Leon also followed without hesitation, both Leons racing upwards in a relentless chase, consuming everything in their path. Even though Nightmare Leon could spread a sea of insects, consuming at a rate far beyond Leon's, Leon kept slashing away the insect sea while rapidly preying on targets. Surprisingly, his consumption speed reversed, surpassing Nightmare Leon's. And as he became more adept, Leon's feeding efficiency continued to soar. This won't do. It absolutely won't. With Leon hot on his heels, Nightmare Leon reached the largest nightmare settlements in the demonic soul abyss, thoroughly consuming them. To his horror and anger, he realized he had eaten far less than Leon. When the King of Nightmares descended into reality, he took away more than half of the elite nightmares in the demonic soul abyss. Those unfortunate nightmares were first obliterated by the Virgin Branch's director, then heavily devoured by dream-eating anomalous carapace released by the Destroyer. Less than a tenth managed to return to the demonic soul abyss. Even though the nightmares in the demonic soul abyss could be resurrected from the Nightmare River, resurrection requires time, and the current nightmare count in the demonic soul abyss is extremely low. Notably, there are very few elites available to replenish the missing nightmare authority. And the damn body is consuming faster than me, with about 80% of the nightmares swallowed into his stomach. If it continues at this rate, even if I lead him to consume the entire demonic soul abyss, it might still not fill the gap in the missing nightmare authority. No other choice. Facing the crisis, Nightmare Leon suddenly halted. Then, in Leon's surprised gaze, plunged into the Nightmare River at his feet. What is he trying to do? Stunned by Nightmare Leon's unusual move, but detecting no danger, Leon hesitated only briefly before decisively following, diving into the Nightmare River. Passing through countless nightmare fragments, he pursued Nightmare Leon. I'll let you chase. Seeing Leon follow him down, Nightmare Leon's heart steeled resolutely. He suddenly stretched out his hands, as if grasping an unimaginably heavy door, and with a gritty pull yanked hard. Boom! Accompanied by an eerie resonance that existed only in his awareness, Nightmare Leon tore open a wide crack at the bottom of the immensely deep, pitch-black Nightmare River, pulling massive volumes of pitch-black water along with countless shattered nightmares into the rift with him. Could it be? Seeing the scene through the enormous rift spanning nearly 100 meters across the riverbed, Leon's heart tightened, and the timely reminder from his senior, Amiens, perfectly confirmed his suspicion. Leon, you must chase after him. Amiens' always calm and steady voice suddenly had a hint of urgency. He's probably realized that, under your rivalry and harassment, the number of nightmares in the demonic soul abyss isn't enough to make up for the missing nightmare authority. If I'm not mistaken, he's attempting to break the barriers between the dream realms, as the goddess of pleasure dreams did, to flood the Nightmare River from the demonic soul abyss into other dream realms using his semi-status as the Lord of Nightmares. What would happen if he does that? Would it help him replenish the nightmare authority? Yes. Amiens sighed. I told you before, it seems there are many layers to the dream realm, but in reality, there is only one. Each layer appears independent, but they are different manifestations of other dream realms. They are completely unified. So, once the creatures of other dream realm layers are immersed in the waters of the Nightmare River, it's as if they've transferred directly to the demonic soul abyss from the current layer of dream realm, forced into transformation into a nightmare. So, he can just eat these newly transformed nightmares to completely replenish the missing nightmare authority, becoming a Lord of Nightmares no longer affected by me. After fully understanding Nightmare Leon's plan through the exchange with Amiens, Leon wasted no time and immediately spurred the Minohill Cursed Mercury into action, plunging into another dream realm layer with the flood of pitch-black river water. This layer is reflecting Empty Valley, one of the 9 great dream realms, representing lucid dreams, characterized by the conscious control of one's own dream. With Amiens' voice narrating, Leon dashed towards the feasting Nightmare Leon, taking a heavy step to shoulder him away with an Iron Mountain lean, then snatched a deer he was already stuffing into his mouth. Thank you. Having narrowly avoided being devoured, the startled deer instinctively voiced gratitude. Yet, after glancing at the deer, which had already been completely nightmare transformed, Leon sighed and, with the deer's shocked expression, lifted it into his own mouth. You're welcome. Ah! As the deer screamed, disappearing into Leon's mouth, Nightmare Leon hastily picked himself up, ripped open reflecting empty valley, and charged into yet another dream realm layer with the surging Nightmare River. This layer is Climb Moon Well Path, one of the 12 minor dream realms, representing traumatic dreams. Help! Ah, thank you. You're welcome. You! This layer is Lone Walker Mountain, Great Dream Realm, Physiological Dreams. Everyone, run. Dester. Ah, who are you? You're welcome too. As Nightmare Leon fled desperately while being relentlessly pursued by Leon, the 9 major and 12 minor layers of the Dream Realm, totaling 21, along with the countless living beings residing within, collectively faced an exceptionally dark day. Often, one would hear a deafening crash, and from either the sky or the earth or somewhere else, a gigantic rift would suddenly be torn open, pouring down a black river filled with countless broken nightmares. Anyone caught in it would be forcibly turned into a nightmare. Immediately afterward, a crazed person with terrifying strength would surge out of the river and begin to ravenously devour, regardless of reason. If they caught someone who hadn't yet become a nightmare, they would even dunk them into the river, waiting until they turned into a nightmare completely before devouring them. Then, it wouldn't be long before another being, exactly identical but with a sinister appearance and body covered in blood, would follow, starting to fight with the first maniac for the next meal. Most infuriatingly, this newcomer, while eating greedily, would actually swear that he was saving them, even saying, "You're welcome," to those he took and devoured. It was utterly outrageous. Unfortunately, those who were outrageously domineering generally had the power to match. Facing the unreasonable and frenzied predation of the 2 Leons, the beings in the 20 dream realms, excluding demonic soul abyss, did consider resistance. However, the problem was that one of them was a 7/8 reserve true god, while the other's soul intensity was also infinitely close to that of a true god. Just a glance from them could make one shiver all over. Without a true god present, ordinary dream realm beings were just fodder regardless of how many tried to fight. Yet within the 21 layers of the dream realm, each layer had only one dominator. Facing these 2 seemingly equal mad opponents, no one had the confidence to secure victory. Most true gods of the dream realm were observing and did not dare to act rashly. Additionally, these 2 madmen didn't stay long in one dream realm layer. They left as soon as they could not feed any longer. The losses they caused were still bearable and not worth the risk of a deadly confrontation. Thus, the dream realm true gods exercised temporary patience, none stepping up to stop them, until, "Stop! Stop right now!" Watching the 2 frenzied Leons, one black and one red, and the barren dream realm left in their wake, the Sagittarius director, who had rushed over after receiving the news, immediately flew into a rage, his thick eyebrows rising like daggers, and his square face turning red like blood. "Bastards! What on earth are you doing? Lord Sagittarius? Crap! The director of the cleanup bureau? This is bad." Noticing the arrival of the cleanup bureau's backup, the expressions of both Leons changed suddenly. Nightmare Leon, unable to replenish his authority, immediately shrank back to human size, tore open the dream realm again in an attempt to flee, while the furious Sagittarius director instantly judged the situation and teleported behind Nightmare Leon, piercing his heart barehanded. But at this moment, Amian, who should have been left somewhere within the dream realm, surprisingly appeared behind the Sagittarius director and, just like before when ambushing the Pisces director, once again stabbed through the Sagittarius director's heart with a dagger. However, unlike before, at the instant he completed the sneak attack, another figure timely followed, similarly stabbing through his heart. The few who were almost simultaneously stabbed from behind immediately stood in an extremely bizarre row.
Person. BFF.
With his heart pierced, Nightmare Leon spat out blood, trembling as he turned back, cursing with intense resentment. "You, despicable, I refuse to accept this."
BFF.
Also spitting out blood, the Sagittarius director ignored the curses, instead turning back with his eyes full of shock, gazing unbelievingly at the senior Amian. showing her true form behind him, and exclaimed in disbelief, "Aquarius! How is it you?"
BFF.
Following suit with another spurt of blood, and having successfully backstabbed the Sagittarius director, the Aquarius director clenched the silver dagger of cutting that had pierced his own heart with his left hand, turning back with extreme surprise. How did you discover it? Your loopholes are riddled with more holes than a mosquito net. I'm not an idiot. How couldn't I notice? If I could have defeated you, I would have already stabbed you long ago, worried that my exposure would lead to my own downfall at your hands. My Lord Sagittarius. Disregarding the Aquarius director's question, Leon gritted his teeth and desperately twisted the silver dagger of cutting in the Aquarius director's heart while shouting at the Sagittarius director. He's now forced to allocate energy to suppress my dagger, or else he'll be completely removed from the world. You must quickly figure out a way to contact the headquarters. Cough. He can't do it. Before the Sagittarius director could respond, the Aquarius director preemptively spoke. Although he's stronger than Pisces, he's much easier to deal with than Pisces. As long as you target his usual few. Cough, cough, cough. After several violent coughs, the Aquarius director slightly exerted force with his left hand, pushing the tip of the silver dagger away from his lungs, then spat out the blood surging up his throat and continued speaking. Anyway, you can't rely on him. His main abnormal objects were all crafted with my help. No one knows him better than I do. Although I can't beat him face to face, since I've seized an opportunity, I'm confident I can prevent him from resisting. As the Sagittarius director glared with anger, the Aquarius director, whose speech was becoming more fluid, asked with keen curiosity, "It's you. You shouldn't have seen this woman too many times and aren't familiar with her style and personality. Why could you tell I wasn't her?" "I don't know Senior Amian well, but I know my badge." Facing the Aquarius director's inquiry, though Leon remained silent, his mind began to respond uncontrollably. Even when I installed and activated the trustworthy elder brother insignia, I couldn't fully gain the Pisces director's trust. Yet Senior Amian, who has never met the Pisces director, was able to hold the Pisces director's hand, keeping her obediently by your side. This is simply unreasonable. The only explanation is that the friendship between you and the Pisces director, accumulated over decades, allowed her, with the mental age of only a few, to instinctively trust you and be willing to listen to you. If those were just conjectures, then when the Pisces director was attacked by Aquarius, and despite standing outside, Senior Amian was unharmed, neither helping nor getting hurt, it presents an even bigger doubt. Furthermore, when distributing potions later, the familiarity you displayed with this silver dagger of cutting, along with the excessive breadth of your knowledge, all these, upon careful consideration, are obvious flaws. Most emphatically, in the first assessment, I saw Senior Amian's role. If you asked her about the types of potions that could cause diarrhea, she might recite names for a day without repetition. But the ecology and characteristics of the dream realm, something unrelated to potions nor bodily functions, how could she possibly know them so well? So many holes piled together. Even a fool should realize she's been replaced. Not willing to say? Seeing Leon remain speechless behind him, the curious Aquarius director couldn't help but sigh slightly, then shook his head with some helplessness and said, "You really gave me quite a surprise. But it doesn't matter. Lady Goddess of Pleasure Dreams, could I ask you to please come over and help me with a small favor?" What a disaster. Upon hearing the call from the Aquarius director, a distant illusion color conch shivered involuntarily but didn't respond. Instead, it hastily retreated into the hiding well. Following both Leon figures closely and witnessing their insanely frenzied eating behavior, the Goddess of Pleasure Dreams had fully awakened at this point, completely abandoning her extravagant hope of regaining her divinity. Lucky encounters, fortunate escapes, all fake. None exist. On the surface, it seemed she was getting lucky and grasping the chance to reclaim her divine seat. But in reality, she, the unlucky fool, had stumbled into the internal conflict of the cleanup bureau, unknowingly getting implicated. Of everyone present, she was the stupidest. Whether it's Aquarius Director or the Bureau side, each clearly has their own calculations, especially that level 3 cleaner. Damn it! How can this freakish character, who even a true god would tremble at seeing, be a level 3 cleaner? If he truly is a level 3 cleaner, I'd go to the dung realm and eat crap right now. Goddess of pleasure dreams, please come out and speak. Not going out. Absolutely not going out. I can't bear the revenge from either side. Besides, I'm hiding so well now you might not know where I am. As long as I insist on not coming out, it means I'm not here. Twice calling the goddess of pleasure dreams without a response. The Aquarius Director wasn't impatient but smiled and invited again. You should have seen our current situation too. We're really not very convenient to go to Moonclimb well, so please come over. Damn it, truly discovered. Hearing the Aquarius Director point out her hiding place, the last bit of hope in the goddess of pleasure dreams was completely shattered. She could only drive the illusion color conch out from Moonclimb well with a mournful face. I actually don't mind coming over, mainly I'm not very clear about the situation and wanted to observe a bit. It's only fair. Without exposing the careful thinking of the goddess of pleasure dreams, the Aquarius Director said gently, "As you saw, we are now in a stalemate, so I hope." Goddess of pleasure dreams. At this time, the Sagittarius Director, who had been communicating with Leon and understood the situation, suddenly interrupted sharply. You must understand, know exactly what choice you are making. I urge you not to deceive yourself. Hearing the shout from the Sagittarius Director, the goddess of pleasure dreams, who was about to come out of the conch, instinctively shrank back, her heart pounding from the shout. Indeed, although the Aquarius Director is difficult to deal with, he is ultimately just one person, but behind the Sagittarius Director is the entire cleanup bureau, in terms of threats from both sides. Same old hasty attitude after all these years. The interrupted Aquarius Director was not angry. He patiently waited for the Sagittarius Director's words to fall before speaking slowly. Goddess of pleasure dreams, aren't you curious why the restriction Pisces placed on you suddenly became invalid? The goddess of pleasure dreams, preparing to side with the cleanup bureau, trembled all over and uncertainly questioned. Isn't he unable to control me because his soul switched early? If you think this way, then you're underestimating Pisces too much. The Aquarius Director smiled and said, aside from me who crafted the for soul watch for him, the person who understands his soul state the most is himself. No one is more aware of his weaknesses, so all the abnormal objects on him have special marks tailored to different soul states. In simple terms, although you might not feel it, when his main soul switches to Mimi, abnormal objects of the true God level like you, which are difficult to control, will be directly locked by a secret technique. I forcefully unlocked his secret technique, releasing you from the shards of paradise lost. You set me free. Frightened by the words of the Aquarius Director, the goddess of pleasure dreams, seemingly understanding something, stuttered. Then you. I have no obligation to assist you, so when I set you free, I left a little something behind. With the Aquarius Director's answer, a golden clock-shaped mark suddenly appeared on the shell of the illusion color conch. At the center of the clock, two spiral-shaped pointer marks began to slowly rotate, one fast and one slow, like real hands. And as the two pointers rotated, this golden clock mark started to deepen continuously. Soon it would pierce through the shell of the illusion color conch. You don't have much time left to make a decision. In the fearful expression of the goddess of pleasure dreams, the Aquarius Director slowly said, if you help me, although you'll surely face retaliation from the cleanup bureau, that is something for later. But if you choose to help them, then you should only have 5 minutes left. I was living just fine before. Why suddenly only 5 minutes left? After hearing the threat from the Aquarius Director, the heart of the goddess of pleasure dreams suddenly felt like she chewed 10 tons of gall, bitter inside and outside. Indeed, pie won't just fall from the sky, and if it does, it's an iron pie. Now, don't mention reclaiming the divine seat. Even her life is about to be ended. And what's even worse is, Even though she surely can't withstand the Bureau's revenge, she doesn't dare to side with them either, because if she doesn't help the Aquarius director, she'll die immediately. Don't listen to him. Spitting a mouthful of blood, the Sagittarius director directly promised the only variable present. If you act now and help us deal with him, I will immediately take you back to the headquarters, remove what's on you, and support you in reclaiming your divine seat. The goddess of pleasure dreams was delighted. But can you do it? The Aquarius director calmly retorted. It's indeed not difficult to save her life. The secret techniques of Aries, Scorpio, Virgo can forcibly remove the time skull seal. I left, but none of the three are at the headquarters now. So what do you plan to use to protect her? The goddess of pleasure dreams was saddened. There is always a way. The Sagittarius director gritted his teeth and said, even if I can't remove the time skull seal from her, I can at least temporarily save her life. As for the seal you left, it can be removed after Aries and the others come back. The goddess of pleasure dreams was delighted again. What is the cost then? The Aquarius director nonchalantly said, I don't deny you can accomplish this, but the abnormal objects the headquarters has that can accomplish this are no more than Metamorphosis Butterfly, Black Skull of the Lake of Death, Mirror Light Roulette, and a few others. Not mentioning whether you would keep your promise, using these precious abnormal objects to save her life. The side effects alone are beyond what she can bear. Although her life could be saved in the end, whether she remains herself is uncertain. No, can't you finish saying this all at once? If you keep bickering back and forth like this, I'm going to be running out of time here. Your Excellency, goddess of pleasure dreams. Just when the goddess, swayed by the two directors, stood on the fence wavering with mixed emotions, the Aquarius director calmly reminded, you have 1 minute left. What? Only 1 minute left. Looking at the seashell, which was marked and translucent, about to be completely pierced through, the goddess of pleasure dreams was driven to tears without any way out. She had no choice but to run out from the shell and reached out to Leon, gritting her teeth. I have no choice. You, At the sound of a scream from the goddess of pleasure dreams, Leon, who remained quiet throughout the tug-of-war, suddenly puffed up his cheeks and spewed out a massive amount of the black water from the Nightmare River, dousing the goddess of pleasure dreams completely. I don't blame you, after all. You couldn't have done anything. Watching as the goddess of pleasure dreams, washed by the water from the Nightmare River, changed from colorful to black, Leon immediately stopped spewing water and shouted loudly, "Don't move!" Along with Leon's shout, the doused and black-faced goddess of pleasure dreams really did stop all her actions, fell with a thud, and tried several times but couldn't get back up. Sigh. Seeing the nightmare of nightmares brilliantly glowing in the badge slot, Leon, who temporarily resolved the crisis, couldn't help but exhale deeply. Luckily, when he went down the river to chase the imitation, he drank a lot of the Nightmare River's water, and although the goddess of pleasure dreams was once a true god, she had now fallen and was still within the contaminated area of the Nightmare River. But the effect seems to be not very stable. Seeing the goddess of pleasure dreams, who regained a faint colorful glow after no longer touching the river water, Leon didn't hesitate to open his mouth again, spitting out all the water he had previously drunk, intending to reinforce the contamination effect. However, the place where the 4 people and 1 fish were located was the Climb Moon Well path in the 21st level of the Dream Realm, a place full of vertical wells of various sizes like the demonic soul abyss, where they happened to be inside a large vertical well. Nevertheless, no matter how big a well is, it remains a well. As Leon continued to spew, the pitch-black river water quickly filled the well, submerging all 4 people and 1 fish within it. Glub glub. Well done. Watching as the goddess of pleasure dreams was knocked down by Leon's words, unable to stand up regardless of her efforts, the Archer director couldn't help but laugh, and simultaneously spat blood while starting to drink water. Blurp, blurp blurp, you really are always full of surprises. After spewing bubbles, the backhanded trick left by the defeated Aquarius director could only shake his head helplessly, then went silent. Glug glug glug. The Nightmare Leon said nothing. Having his heart pierced by the Archer Director's ruthless move, he could do nothing but drink water. Blue, it's over. Looking at the now pierced seashell marked with golden engravings on her body, the tearful goddess of pleasure dreams suddenly closed her eyes in despair. If I could have another chance to start over, I would definitely stay honestly inside the shell and never come out. Click! As the two engraved clock hands turned a circle to the starting point again, the unlucky goddess of pleasure dreams, full of remorse, let out a scream, then with a face full of despair. In despair, but nothing happened. I'm not dead. I actually didn't die. But it feels like something's missing. As the engraved pocket watch mark clicked and disappeared after reaching the end, the goddess of pleasure dreams was suddenly puzzled, then instinctively looked up towards the direction of the Aquarius Director. But before she could, the Archer Director had already roared out first. Glub! Glub glub glub! Aquarius! Were you lying? Too bad it almost succeeded. Ignoring the Archer Director's anger, the Aquarius Director sighed fretfully when he saw the understanding look on Leon's face, and then voluntarily let go of the knife in his right hand. At the same time, as the Aquarius Director released his grip as though receiving some instruction, the four interlocked people moved simultaneously with great coordination. Leon let go of the silver dagger of cutting, held by the Aquarius Director, switched to the Hand of Screams, which had been offline for a long time, and slammed it towards the back of the head of the Aquarius Director. The right hand of the Aquarius Director released the little golden knife, and even the left hand let go of the silver dagger of cutting. His whole body, like a mist, rushed forward, directly over the Archer Director, grabbing Nightmare Leon at once. As for the Archer Director, whose heart was pierced by the golden knife and couldn't move, let out a fierce roar. Then fell with a thud, sitting beside the fallen goddess of pleasure dreams. If you can't do anything, why are you yelling like it's a marketplace? Watching the Archer Director fall with a thud, Leon, with his punch missing, was instantly confused. This isn't how it was supposed to be. I thought that after you gained your freedom, we could trap Aquarius in a pincer attack and keep him from leaving. Why are you lying down instead? For a director, how can your level be this low? Yet, the disappointing Archer was seemingly oblivious to his own incompetence and sat on the floor shouting, "Hurry! Quickly grab Aquarius. Don't let him escape." No, is the problem now actually about capturing him? With you lying down there, how am I supposed to catch him? You're just talking without any back pain. Wait a minute. Seeing the Aquarius Director grab Nightmare Leon without turning back to deal with himself, but instead start to flee rapidly, Leon's eyebrows shot up, and he immediately chased after them. In unbearable pain, he slammed a heavy punch into Aquarius Director's back. To Leon's great surprise, Aquarius Director, who took a punch, only let out a cry, and then continued fleeing with Nightmare Leon without any intention of fighting back. So the Archer Director not only yelled but also secretly managed to do something sneaky yet subtle. Discovering that the Aquarius Director seemingly lacked the strength to resist, the overjoyed Leon activated Cursed Mercury, and with the mentality of striking while the enemy was weak, he, wearing the Hand of Screams, launched a frenzied beating towards the Aquarius Director. However, the fallen Archer Director, jumping in urgency, yelled out loud, "Idiot! You're hitting the wrong one! Hitting the wrong one!" Upon hearing the Archer Director's shout, Leon suddenly felt his vision blur. The positions of the Aquarius Director and Nightmare Leon exchanged in a very bizarre way. The one who was hit repeatedly by him was Nightmare Leon, who was protected by the Aquarius Director instead of the fleeing Aquarius Director. At the same time, an engraved mark identical to the one on the Goddess of Pleasure Dreams appeared quietly on the left side of the Aquarius Director's face, and the two needles embedded in the flesh started to turn slowly. What is this? Seeing the watch marks on the Aquarius Director's face, Leon's expression instantly stiffened slightly. Although it was still unclear what exactly Aquarius intended to do, one thing needed no consideration. Whatever he was planning, it was definitely not good for Leon, so beat him hard. With the power reserve in his body far exceeding that of the average true god, Leon activated Cursed Mercury and Hand of Screams to their limits, almost like he had grown hundreds of arms, unleashing a merciless beating on the Aquarius director. But the real killer move wasn't this brutal beating. It was a small, snow-bright silver knife tip protruding from the blind spot of the Aquarius director's vision, from the nightmare mirror on Leon's crown. Hee hee. Accompanied by a laugh echoing in the soul, the Aquarius director, whose veins bulged from the pain, showed a strange smile on his face. Then, his arm bent backward abruptly, dislocating his own joint, and he gripped the blade of silver dagger of cutting. At the same time, the watch hands engraved on the Aquarius director's face completed their rotation with a click and, in Leon's incredulous gaze, began to spin rapidly in reverse, rotating 5 full circles, and then, goodbye, with the Aquarius director silently mouthing the words with a smile. He, battered and bruised, whisked away the already unconscious nightmare Leon, swayed slightly, and then retreated in a bizarre way, like the hands of a clock, disappearing instantly into the Climb Moon well path. That damned old eel! With an annoyed curse, the director of Sagittarius behind Leon slammed his own thigh and shouted to Leon, who wanted to chase after him. Don't chase him. He probably cut away 5 minutes of time from the goddess of pleasure dreams. The Aquarius now should have returned to the place she stayed 5 minutes ago. Cut away 5 minutes? How does that work? I'm not very sure either. He's kept this thing well hidden and hasn't used it before. Pointing to his own eyes, the director of Sagittarius replied with a sullen face. But from what I observed of the effect, this should be one of the abnormal objects he created from the remnants of the King of Time, likely able to forcibly strip away and borrow time from a target at the cost of his own time. Damn it! When he summoned the goddess of pleasure dreams before, it wasn't to have her attack you, but to take away her 5 minutes and use it to escape from my grasp. After simply explaining the operation of Aquarius Director, the sullen director of Sagittarius pulled out a box filled with organs from somewhere, then took out his stabbed heart and directly replaced it with a new one. The heart he replaced, after wriggling slightly twice, immediately lost its color, becoming an 8-legged gray spider, and after letting out 2 screams, it went motionless. Next, under Leon's stunned gaze, the director of Sagittarius rummaged through the dazzling box, subsequently replacing most of the vital parts of his body. The eyes he removed turned into 2 black pearls emitting an eerie aura, his Adam's apple turned into a peculiar fish spine, and his brain was a large almond with a mouth and teeth, constantly letting out screams. Even more appalling, he even replaced the second leg from the left to right, something most important to a man, with a crooked one-eyed octopus. Geez, you're playing on a whole other level of weird. Why are you so surprised? Glancing at the dumbfounded Leon, the director of Sagittarius frowned, then said somewhat speechlessly, I'm not stupid. With an ascension test turning out like this and Pisces suddenly making no move, with everything so uncertain, how could I possibly come here with my real body? So, this isn't your true body? Upon hearing that only a fake body of the director of Sagittarius had come, and that he hadn't actually turned his friend into an octopus, Leon couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Then he curiously asked while looking at the parts he had replaced, Then what are these? These are just some necessary little means. Upon hearing Leon's question, the director of Sagittarius, having a square face that gave off an honest and steadfast aura, raised his thick eyebrows with a righteous look and replied, I'm kind of a short-tempered person, and my attitude has always been the most hardline among the directors. So there are plenty who want me dead. Of course, I have to have some countermeasures prepared. Unfortunately, Aquarius stabbed only my heart this time. Phantom Spider is concealed but a bit slow to effect. Even though I've been stalling, it still wasn't enough to consume his Leon value entirely, leaving him with the strength to activate the abnormal object and run. If he had stabbed my head, things would have been different. No wonder Aquarius didn't fight back. Turns out he was caught in your trap, his contamination value almost entirely consumed. Well, your sly tricks really don't do justice to that righteous face of yours. Looking at the regretful face of the director of Sagittarius in front of him, Leon couldn't help but twitch his mouth slightly, holding back a million complaints. But just then, he suddenly remembered something, hurriedly asking, "Your Excellency Sagittarius." Aquarius has been disguising as Senior Amian all along, so now she is. "Don't worry, she'll be fine." Calmly waving a hand, the director of Sagittarius replied with a somewhat complex expression. "We didn't just sit around while staying at headquarters. When you and Edward were investigating Kralik Kingdom, we went through some old records and even found Aquarius's lab at headquarters, gaining quite a bit from it. Well, let me put it this way, if Aquarius still hasn't given up and still wants to replace the director of Taurus and ascend to the palace, then he would definitely control his actions, not harming any humans easily." Huh? Puzzled by the director of Sagittarius's words, Leon asked in surprise, "Why? Is there some hidden requirement that to ascend the Watcher's palace, one cannot harm others?" "Kind of." The director of Sagittarius nodded and said, "You probably know from Olivia by now, the Watcher's palace was born out of the will to protect humanity, and the souls of those who have massively harmed humans would inevitably cause conflict with the Watcher's palace. The original Aquarius did a lot of bad things, and this conflict has escalated beyond salvation. But having died completely once, even losing more than half of his soul, he can now be seen as a new individual. And Aquarius is a perfectionist. To ensure compatibility with the Watcher's palace and reduce conflicts before and after his ascent, he'd certainly control his actions, avoiding harm to human lives as much as possible. Will Aquarius try to avoid harming people? Hearing the words of the Sagittarius director, Leon couldn't help but be slightly stunned, and then he recalled his past encounters with Aquarius in the realm of the dead. If the Sagittarius director's theory is correct, then the reason Aquarius didn't finish him off back then, apart from wanting to arrange a way out for his daughter Nicole, might also include this reason. In any case, you don't have to worry about the safety of that little girl he's disguised as. From what I understand about Aquarius, he himself is not very interested in unnecessary slaughter, plus to avoid clashing with the will of the Watcher's palace, he definitely won't go all out. That little girl was probably knocked out by him and casually tossed somewhere. And all of you cleaners who came to participate in the assessment have ingested those offshoots of the dream-playing colorful fungus. So if your real-world bodies suffer a lethal attack, you'll wake up. So even if you can't find her whereabouts, it doesn't matter. When you go back, just blow up her head, and you'll be able to wake her up. This method really is quite straightforward and brutal. Oh right. The Sagittarius director's expression suddenly turned serious when he said this, and then he asked, "What about the other cleaners who came to the assessment? Why are you the only one left? Where have they gone? Also, what happened to Pisces now? And what's the story with that newly emerged king of nightmares?" "They're all still safe. Lord Pisces was ambushed, and her soul has already been switched with Mimi, but she hasn't suffered any other harm." After briefly explaining the current situation, Leon suggested, "Lord Sagittarius, when Lord Pisces was attacked before, the Aquarius director didn't actually leave. I'm worried he might try a similar trick again. We should find Lord Pisces as soon as possible. I'll explain more to you on the way." "Makes sense, but you don't need to worry too much either." After listening to Leon's suggestion, the Sagittarius director first nodded, then picked up the goddess of pleasure dreams, who was sulking at his feet, forcibly shoved her back into the conch shell, and said arrogantly, "Although Aquarius has many methods, his level of direct combat is very poor, not my match at all and only slightly stronger than Pisces, whose soul has issues. If it hadn't been so sudden before, he wouldn't even have had the chance to ambush my decoy body." Okay, you're the best, alright? Faced with the Sagittarius director's self-praise, the corners of Leon's mouth couldn't help but twitch slightly. Although he knew what the Sagittarius director said was probably true, his initial encounter with Aquarius left him with a very poor impression. Especially when the Sagittarius director later roared mightily, seemingly about to tear Aquarius apart, but then immediately fell to the ground acting as a spring commander, a magnificent sight that lingered in Leon's mind. Seeing him suddenly start to brag was really a bit hard to maintain composure. This guy seems to be thinking something quite impolite. Noticing Leon's rather odd expression, The Sagittarius director's thick eyebrows raised slightly. Then he snorted coldly. Aquarius does have a lot of strange and peculiar things, but the abnormal genesis of the Aquarius lineage can only be used to create abnormal objects, whereas the secret techniques of the Sagittarius lineage can be used for abnormal enhancement in combat. Even an ordinary abnormal object, once imbued with my secret technique, can exhibit unimaginable effects. For example, the phantom spider that almost devoured Aquarius just now was just an, What's that sound? Click. Accompanied by the sound of a mechanism resetting, a familiar pocket watch mark quietly appeared on the Sagittarius director's rear. In the shocked expressions of Leon and the others, a golden mark flashed into existence before vanishing suddenly. After the golden mark disappeared, the Sagittarius director appeared slightly dazed for a moment and then stood motionless as if his soul had left his body. Degree. Lord Sagittarius? What's wrong with you? At least say something. Just as Leon was getting no response and was about to bite the bullet and put on the hand of screams, to forcibly wake him up, the Sagittarius director finally snapped out of it, looking blankly at Leon and said, "I'm finished." "Huh. My body is gone. Just got eliminated by Aquarius." "What did you say?" Shocked by the Sagittarius director's words, Leon was incredulous and said, "Didn't he just run away? Could it be he severed your time, and then used the severed time to find your main body's location?" "Probably." The Sagittarius director nodded, his expression extremely stiff, and explained, "He must have used the chronometer pocket watch to read my past, then severed the time my main body and decoy interacted, reached the point in time where I should be, found the secret chamber hiding my main body, and then directly killed my main body." You just looked down on Aquarius director's combat ability, yet you've been completely outmaneuvered. Seeing the somewhat distraught Sagittarius director, Leon didn't know what to say and could only offer ineffectual comfort, saying, "It's okay. The body can be repaired. As long as your soul is still there, then..." "He's using the remnants of my body to repeatedly curse my soul. This time it's really bad." No longer with his previous confident demeanor, the Sagittarius director, with an extremely troubled look, said with a pale face, "Mimi has no combat ability at all. It'll take over a month for the soul to switch back. As for me, ordinary materials can't house my soul. Repairing my body will take at least half a year. Not to mention my soul is constantly being cursed, so I dare not leave this body casually. But Joan over there has already completed the preliminary preparations, and will ascend to the palace in less than half a month. There's no room for further alterations. This is a disaster, isn't it?" Having silently completed the conclusion for the Sagittarius director in his mind, the extremely troublesome situation also left Leon barely holding it together. Right now, of the three directors, one is young, one is disabled, and Mr. Taurus is about to ascend to the palace and can't make a move. Meanwhile, the Slaughter King Association is lurking, ready to attack the royal family at any moment. The Zodiac Bureau chief must guard their own territories, and the non-Zodiac branch chiefs are not skilled enough. How the hell will we fight this? What about the other cleaners participating in the assessment? After a brief moment of silence, the Sagittarius director, having calmed his turbulent emotions somewhat, then asked with a grim expression, "I'll send you all back first. Once you're back, you must immediately notify the directors of your respective branches to come to headquarters for a meeting." "Ah, okay." Hearing this, Leon quickly nodded, then reached out to claw at his own throat. "Hold on. I'll spit them out immediately." Kingdom of Orlison, Green Shade City, Purification Bureau, Scorpio Subbureau. Seemingly sensing something unusual, the Scorpio chief, who was repairing a doll, looked up in surprise and gazed at the empty room opposite his office. A few familiar souls were slowly awakening there. Why is this promotion assessment so quick? Wasn't there supposed to be a collective investigation task? How have they all returned before dawn? After frowning in confusion, the Scorpio chief put away the doll in his hands, preparing to ask those who went for the assessment to report back so he could understand what had happened. However, the strange thing was, although those in the room had awakened, there was no movement, and no one came to find him. They all remained silent in the room. Oh no, judging by this situation, they're probably quite shaken. After waiting for a long time without anyone coming, the Scorpio chief couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. His subordinates usually had pretty good psychological resilience. Even if they didn't perform well in the promotion assessment, they wouldn't take long to report in. Their current silence must mean they encountered Leon in the assessment. 8 against 1, and they couldn't win, taking a hard beating. Well, I better go over there. With an exasperated shake of his head, the Scorpio chief stood up, walked around his desk, left his office, took a deep breath in the hallway, and then sternly opened the door to the room opposite. As expected, the gazes that greeted him were the blank eyes of the 8 Scorpio branch cleaners. These subordinates, who were brimming with confidence and determined to challenge Leon before falling asleep, now looked less like they were in despair and more like they'd been utterly ravaged, their eyes vacant. Especially his favorite officer, Abigail, who usually was very proud and exceedingly confident in her strength. She was curled up on the sofa, holding her knees, occasionally shuddering intensely. Damn Leon. His means are really ruthless. Seeing his subordinates, whose confidence had been utterly shattered, with lifeless eyes, the Scorpio chief felt an immense heartache, resolving with difficulty to use a method of breaking before building to harshly scold them awake. Pathetic! Slapping a cabinet by the door forcefully, the Scorpio chief angrily reprimanded. Where has your confidence gone? It was just a promotion assessment. Even if 8 against 1 you couldn't win, what does that prove? Is this face something you should be showing? 8 against 1? Hearing the Scorpio chief's discontented questioning, the 8 dazed cleaners finally came back to their senses, and one of them confusedly asked, "Chief, what did you just say? What 8 against 1? Completely unprepared for such a response, the Scorpio chief Edward was momentarily stunned, then asked in confusion, "In your current state, isn't it because you lost 8 against 1 in the assessment?" 8 against 1, as if we could. Listening to their chief's question, the 8 cleaners glanced at each other and then shook their heads. Not a loss in 8 against 1. Seeing his subordinates shake their heads, the Scorpio chief couldn't think of any other reason they would be so dejected. He frowned in confusion and asked further, "So, did that guy disregard all decorum and go all out in the assessment? How many did he fight at once? How many he fought?" Recalling the situation of the second assessment round, the faces of the 8 cleaners twitched in unison, and then they all turned their heads away. After a moment, someone answered quietly, That guy fought over 400 people in total. The second assessment round was a challenge system. Except for the woman from his sub-bureau, he challenged everyone at once. All the participating cleaners were beaten by him. Goddamn brute." Upon listening to Leon's incredibly exaggerated achievements, Edward's face twitched as well, and he began cursing a certain red-haired woman inwardly. Allowing that guy to participate in this level of assessment was already quite oppressive. Who knew he could suppress them so thoroughly? Even the strongest-willed person would be at their wits' end after being brutally defeated, played by 1 against 400. No worries, you still have the chance to catch up to him. Looking at his subordinates who appeared utterly dispirited, Chief Edward had to give up his initial breaking before building plan, offering a few heartless comforting words before inquiring further. "What about the third round? How did the third assessment go? Did any of you succeed in getting promoted?" The third assessment, upon hearing the Scorpio chief's question, it seemed to trigger some deadly keyword. The 8 cleaners, who'd only just been spat out by Leon not long ago, shivered altogether. The first one caught and consumed by Leon, Abigail, began trembling uncontrollably again, her face turning paper white. Crap, surely they were dealt with again. From his subordinates' reactions, the Scorpio chief, feeling great distress, surmised they encountered something quite disastrous. His face nearly contorting with tension and worry. Under his repeated encouragement and questioning, finally, one of the Scorpio branch cleaners calmed down and fearfully recounted his experience. Director Pisces was ambushed. We followed the goddess of pleasure dreams to continue the assessment. Then, a new king of nightmares emerged, after which that guy went berserk, consuming all participating cleaners, and, alongside the new king of nightmares, devoured over 20 layers of the dream realm one by one. Having fearfully recounted what transpired, the answering cleaner hesitantly added, "Later, luckily, Director Archer arrived in time in the dream realm, forcing that person to spit us all out. When we were spat out, Director Archer was standing there looking really displeased, urging that guy to hurry up and vomit or something. Oh right, Director Archer also said that a very critical situation occurred this time, and said you should go to headquarters for a meeting after dawn." Ah, oh. Not only in the Scorpio branch, but cleanup agents who'd been spat out by Leon, once returned from the dream realm through Director Archer, witnessed similar scenes repeatedly unfolding in over 60 participating branches, and over 400 cleaners who survived in Leon's mouth due to Director Archer's timely arrival, although ordered to remain silent about their experiences in the dream realm, successfully spread someone's notorious reputation through their bizarre actions, ranging from fear to sobbing desperately. Hiss. Although you did not directly harm them, the unreasonable devouring experience, followed by the slow digestion inside your stomach and the frightening feeling of having their souls drained bit by bit, caused severe psychological trauma to numerous cleaners. These cleaners who survived your grasp returned with the notorious tale that awarded you a gold-level prestige badge. Food God, Glutton God. There are only wrongly called names but no wrong titles. Among the Cleanup Bureau's most outstanding group of cleaners, one will inevitably become famous with each task and gradually earn a universally recognized unique title. And after undergoing several highly dangerous tasks, the Glutton God of the Cleanup Bureau has successfully replaced Glutton God Leon as your most recognized exclusive designation. Effect when equipped, due to your widely known peculiar hobby, upon revealing or having your identity exposed, all nearby cleaners of level 1 and below who learn of the news will immediately receive an unremovable fear effect. Advanced route, none. Hidden trait, equipping not required, influenced by your infamous reputation. During interbranch joint operations involving you, cleaners of level 1 and below will have a dramatic increase in obedience to you, though there's also a certain probability they might quietly flee. What the hell is this damn badge? Looking at the Glutton God shining brightly in the badge slot, Leon, his face filled with speechlessness, decisively took it off, pretending that he never received such a thing. There are only 2 effects and both harshly punished teammates. It's better not to wear it at all. Its existence is like a failing Archer director, simply here to be a joke. Knock, knock, knock. Just as Leon was browsing through his badges, pondering if he could come up with some useful new combination, there was a sudden knock at his office door. A somewhat timid voice quietly inquired from outside. "Senior Leon, are you available now?" Calling me senior, that should be Ms. Breakthrough outside. Speaking of which, can I actually be called senior by someone else? Feeling a bit awkward being called senior, Leon involuntarily coughed lightly, then sat upright behind the desk and responded loudly. "Yes, you can come in." "Ah, okay." With Leon's permission, Ms. Breakthrough, still wearing that old velvet dress, walked into Leon's office with her head slightly bowed, then hesitantly said, Senior Leon, yesterday, I encountered some strange things, so I wanted to ask you." "Come on. I'm not going to eat you. Is there a need to be so nervous?" Seeing Ms. Breakthrough standing with her hands tightly held in front of her abdomen, her face practically spelling out social anxiety, Leon couldn't help but say with some helplessness, "Ms. Layla, you really don't need to be so tense. We're all colleagues, just ask whatever you want. Also, even though you were introduced by me to join, I haven't been in the Cleanup Bureau long myself, roughly the same period as you, so you don't need to call me senior, just call me by name. Al. All right? Unconsciously stepping back half a step, MS. Breakthrough spoke so softly it was like a mosquito. Mister. Then I had a dream yesterday, and then somehow, inexplicably, I dreamed of you. Had a dream? Upon hearing Layla's words, Leon raised an eyebrow in surprise, then realized, and with a hint of astonishment, asked, You didn't dream about yesterday's promotion assessment, did you? Promotion assessment? What's that? Hearing this, MS. Breakthrough raised her head with some confusion and cautiously replied, Sorry, I don't know what the promotion assessment is, but I first dreamed you were sitting on a chair drawing. Then you took a knife and killed hundreds of people, and later, don't know why, suddenly you were with another you, eating whatever you saw. Goodness, didn't you just see everything? So while Senior Amian and I were participating in the promotion assessment, you were observing from the dream borders. Sorry. Seeing Leon's rather speechless expression, Layla immediately retreated timidly, her face turning crimson as she apologized again. I also don't know why I had such a strange dream, but Director Olivia told me to report any odd events to her, or if she's unavailable, to find you. Director Olivia seemed busy with no time to listen to this, so Anyway, sorry for bothering you. Please forget all the nonsense I just said. Wait. Seeing that she seemed about to run, Leon quickly got up, bypassed the desk, and stopped him. Breakthrough, who had bowed suddenly and was about to dash out of his office. Don't leave yet. Actually, not everything you dreamed of is nonsense. ? In Layla's puzzled expression, Leon cleared his throat, his eyes slightly shifting as he said, At the time, another senior from the Bureau and I were in the dream realm participating in the headquarters promotion assessment, and what you dreamed about should be the situation then. Does that mean what I dreamed actually happened? Did you really see something and then eat it? Hearing Leon's words, MS. Breakthrough couldn't help but widen her eyes, and then asked nervously with a face full of shock, Mr. Leon, you, in our bureau, in order to get promoted, you actually have to eat and do those kinds of things? This. Ahem. It's not what you think it is. After giving her a simple explanation, mainly clarifying that he doesn't eat people, and seeing MS. Breakthrough breathe a sigh of relief, Leon curiously inquired, MS. Layla, besides the matter of Senior Amian and me, did you dream of anything else yesterday? I did dream of some other things. After hesitating on Leon's question, MS. Breakthrough subtly glanced at him and timidly whispered, I dreamed of you, or rather, someone who looks like you was discussing something in a pitch-black river with someone called Director Shui something, saying they planned to make a move on our Virgin Branch. Leon. Upon seeing and urgently rushing Leon entering, the red-haired director, with a fatigued appearance, beckoned him over and, with a furrowed brow, said, It's just as well I needed to find you. The headquarters meeting just ended, and the situation does not look optimistic. ? Hearing the red-haired director's opening line, Leon, who was also about to report bad news, was taken aback. Then he asked urgently, What did the headquarters say? Mr. Taurus's ascension preparations have been made and can't be delayed any longer. But the other two directors have had issues, and maintaining Mr. Taurus's safety isn't certain. So, Director Archer proposed that 6 Zodiac branch office directors, including me, temporarily abandon overseeing their territories to collectively head to the headquarters, prioritizing ensuring Director of Taurus can successfully ascend. What? Upon hearing this, Leon's pupils couldn't help but contract, and he hurriedly asked, Then what about the Slaughter King Association? If 6 Yellow Road directors are transferred at once, wouldn't that be like handing over 6 kingdoms to the Slaughter King Association? Don't worry, the Bureau isn't that ridiculous. They won't just let go of the 6 kingdoms. Glancing at Leon, who had a furrowed brow, the red-haired director waved his hand and said, Aside from the directors of the 11 Zodiac branch offices. Aren't there still directors of the non-Zodiac branches? According to the arrangement of the Sagittarius director, before we Zodiac directors are summoned to headquarters, among those remaining 70-odd small branches, 18 directors will be reassigned to temporarily replace us in guarding the 6 great kingdoms. I see. After the red-haired director's explanation, Leon finally understood the plan of the Sagittarius director. In simple terms, it's a modified Tianji's horse racing. The cleanup bureau is preparing to gather the major bureau directors to the headquarters to guard against the Aquarius director, send small branch directors to guard against the Slaughter King Association, and ultimately, abandon the defense of some small branches directly. Faced with an opponent like the Aquarius director, who is half a step into the great perfection of the Pillar God level, the directors of the non-Zodiac branches are not quite up to the task, so they are only summoning the Zodiac branch directors to assist at headquarters. As for the small branch directors, although most are only around a level of 60 points, the Slaughter King Association is hampered by the Watcher's Palace, and even sending down a true god is quite difficult, so the overall combat level shouldn't be too high. 3 directors at the true god level should suffice. Lastly, even though the small branches are directly abandoned, the Slaughter King Association seeks to sever the 12 royal families rather than kill humans indiscriminately. The city-states and human settlements protected by the small branches weren't in their target range anyway, so this adjustment is indeed just right. But, if this plan is so fitting, why did the director still say the situation is not optimistic? Because this plan isn't as stable as it seems, mainly because the directors of those small branches may not be able to hold the 6 great kingdoms. Seeing Leon's confusion, the red-haired director said helplessly, "Let me tell you this. My strength hasn't truly reached the Pillar God level. I need the Star Palace's blessing to temporarily surpass the Pillar God level threshold." Many small branch directors are the same. Their strength heavily relies on the Star Palace's blessing, which has a certain range. For example, the Virgo Star Palace's blessing only works within most of the kingdom's territory. I'm only at the Pillar God level within my jurisdiction. Outside the Star Palace's range, the blessing's effect diminishes greatly. Once out of the jurisdiction range, will the Star Palace's blessing effect decrease? Upon hearing this, Leon couldn't help but frown, recalling the times he encountered the Scorpio director. Whether facing off with the King of Nightmares or during the investigation task in the Kralik Kingdom, his impression and level seemed considerably weaker, being trapped by 6 nightmare envoys and nearly failing completely in the Kralik Kingdom. But if this is true, considering the director's vengeful nature, he would have already been reprimanded, with no chance to argue with the director. Thus, his poor performance likely relates heavily to the lack of the Star Palace's blessing. Can the Star Palace's range not be adjusted at all? Thinking for a moment, Leon couldn't help but ask. Since the Virgo Star Palace's blessing range is limited within the kingdom's territory, shouldn't it be slightly adjustable? Perhaps reduce the intensity slightly, then expand the blessing range. Basically impossible. The red-haired director took a sip of tea, sighing. Little Leon, you've got it mixed up. It's not that the Virgo Star Palace's blessing range is limited within the kingdom's range. It's that the entire kingdom is established within the Virgo Star Palace's blessing range. In fact, not just the 12 kingdoms. All major human settlements worldwide have been constructed according to each Star Palace's coverage range. So the Star Palace's blessing range is practically immutable. To modify it, one would need to consult the sun. But the sun is indeed too far. Definitely not in time to reach it, right? After getting a slight understanding of the Star Palace's mechanism, Leon couldn't help but frown. Despite the suppression of the Watcher's Palace, the Slaughter King Association finds it difficult to directly bring a true god, but powerful spirits, like those peak black goats reaching a contamination value of 59.9, aren't hard to smuggle in. And without the Star Palace's blessing, many of these substitute small branch directors cannot reach true god level, losing positional suppression against the Slaughter King Association, and they are at a strategic disadvantage, forced into defensive positions. So if enough powerful spirits descend, the situation might indeed become as the director predicted, with those substitute branch directors struggling to hold the 6 great kingdoms. Then can't continue to transfer people. Familiar with Leon, the red-haired director, upon hearing just a sound, guessed what he was about to say and shook his head in advance. Though in theory, we could transfer all small branch directors to the 6 kingdoms, utilizing 12 directors for one kingdom. Doing so poses greater risks, leading to further loss of control. The current arrangement is already the limit. If we can't increase people, how about directly reducing the targets for protection? His eyes flickering slightly, Leon spoke. I remember in the 12 kingdoms. Can't deliberately let go of some vile royal families, because just another 1 or 2 royal families going extinct, and the true God can descend into the mortal world. Nor is it useful to select and protect one descendant from each of the 6 royal families. Bypassing protection to cursed targets is far too easy. Phylea isn't worried about this because she was born not too long ago, hasn't left too many traces in the world, and Kralik Kingdom, where she lived, has already been completely eradicated by you, making it impossible for the Slaughter King Association to find materials for curses. Why not just? Also can't make royal members feign death, fall asleep, be sealed, or sent to realm of the dead. None of these work. Goodness, you really blocked every path, left me no option. Huh? With Leon expressing excessive frustration, the red-haired director listed and denied a dozen methods, ultimately summarizing helplessly. In short, all feasible solutions have been discussed within the Bureau. Even absurd ideas like hypnotizing all humans to forget royal identities have been proposed multiple times. But these methods are either impractical or come with higher costs. After discussions, everyone realized that dispatching me and 5 other Zodiac directors to headquarters is the most stable option relatively. However, that plan is also no longer stable. Question mark. Seeing the red-haired director puzzled, Leon spoke about Miss Breakthrough's discovery, then stated with annoyance. According to the conspiracy overheard by Layla, on the day Mr. Taurus ascends the palace, Aquarius won't go to headquarters at all, but rather plans to raid our Virgin branch. No way. Does Aquarius have a screw loose or something? After hastily calling over Miss Breakin and thoroughly questioning her from beginning to end, and confirming the information she stumbled upon, even the well-experienced red-haired chief couldn't help feeling a bit overwhelmed. If what Layla saw is real, then this matter could be... Damn it! What is he really trying to do? He even abandoned the dream of replacing the director of Taurus to ascend to the palace and is instead causing trouble for our Virgin branch? This is just... The red-haired chief, utterly puzzled, clasped his head in his hands, messing up his smooth and shiny red hair, then firmly pursed his lips and said, Leon, the news that Layla heard, I must report it to the directors immediately, and maybe there'll be meetings afterward. You've worked hard recently, so I'll give you a few days off, but during this time, I hope you can try to. I won't leave the royal capital. Understanding his chief's style well, Leon spoke calmly. If the headquarters comes up with a decision or if there's anything else they need me to do, just have Senior Jerry contact me through the mirror world, and I'll come back right away. Hearing Leon's response, the red-haired chief couldn't help but feel slightly warmed, then nodded toward him before pulling out from a nearby cabinet to make a call to headquarters. Having been granted leave, Leon comforted a somewhat bewildered Layla with a few words, then pushed the door open and left the red-haired chief's office, only to bump into someone in the corridor with a thud. Oh? Darn it, was there really someone in the corridor? Looking at the stranger he knocked to the ground, Leon was momentarily stunned and didn't immediately help him up, but instead looked at him curiously. This ordinary-looking young man with average build, ordinary clothes, and ordinary appearance, someone who would be lost in the crowd, seemed used to being treated this way. He just got up himself, then nodded amicably yet ordinarily, and apologized to Leon. Sorry, Senior Leon. I was just lost in thought and didn't notice you coming. Senior Leon? Upon hearing this unusual address, Leon finally realized that besides Miss Breakin Layla, there seemed to be another person on the new member list given by the red-haired chief. And this person's name, what was it again? My name is Matthew Notermly. Not sure if he noticed Leon's embarrassment or was used to people forgetting his name. The ordinary young man introduced himself, then smiled and asked, Senior Leon, it's been a few days since I joined the branch. May I know where my office is? Sorry. After handing in the list, I completely forgot about you, and if it weren't for bumping into you just now, I wouldn't have remembered you at all. Well, Matthew. Yes, Matthew. After repeatedly going over this not-so-hard-to-remember name that mysteriously always slipped his mind, Leon embarrassingly confessed. Your office hasn't been arranged yet. I'm really sorry. It's fine. It's not your fault. The exceedingly ordinary young man seemed to have a good temper, not getting angry at being forgotten for several days, and politely inquired about the work at the cleanup bureau and tips for newcomers. Through ongoing exchanges with him, Leon's memory, previously shrouded, gradually became clearer with the deepening impression. Being one of the two newcomers joining the cleanup bureau along with Miss Breakin-Layla, the contamination value of this Matthew guy was a bit lacking, yet he had a great perfection level 2 cleaner's level. His ability, in stark contrast to Layla's, was complete opposites. If Layla's ability made her always at the scene, his ability was such that no one ever knows he's there. This Matthew guy, hailing from a minor noble family, had an astonishingly weak sense of presence, naturally ignored or forgotten by everyone. Before managing to pass the review to join the cleanup bureau, he had worked in the security bureau for a full 5 years, yet not once was he assigned any guarding duties, effectively heading a 5-year-long salary thievery. Although getting paid without working sounded nice, unfortunately his salary, like his work assignments, was often overlooked, and if late for work occasionally, even his resting bed and personal locker would be reassigned to new guards thinking no one used them. In what might be described as a career neither started nor failed, his one and only assignment was to guard Princess Veronica against rebel assassinations. Yet, his doom arrived when the princess's close guards overlooked him during a sweep, leaving him with a nail gun standing within 10 paces of Princess Veronica, only to be knocked over by rebels charging in, unable to escape in time. Consequently, this unlucky Matthew guy was mistaken for a rebel due to holding a dangerous hot weapon in an inappropriate place and was promptly thrown into prison. Then, of course, everyone forgot about him. The guards who tossed him into prison forgot about this would-be assassin. The judge responsible for trying rebels didn't remember there was an unexamined individual, and even rebel jailbreakers failed to notice they missed a comrade. Having been forgotten by everyone, he often went hungry due to his extremely low presence, forcing him to repeatedly jailbreak when wardens, believing his cell to be empty, placed new inmates inside, only to return home to fill his belly before turning himself in again. This incredibly bizarre imprisonment lasted 8 months, during which he repeatedly broke out over 90 times avoiding starvation, continuously adding years to his sentence until finally accumulating enough for a death penalty, thereby making it onto the cleanup bureau's roster. Well, I think I remember now, this guy is a natural-born holy assassin, but the big issue is getting someone to remember his existence and assign him tasks. Gradually recalling the entire resume of the ordinary young man, and why he was invited to the cleanup bureau, Leon's tense body finally relaxed. Embracing the spirit of passing the torch, he began explaining his compiled, the Emma Remnant scripture, to this promising newcomer. The good-tempered ordinary young man promptly took out a small notebook, much like Leon once did, soaking up the precious knowledge like a sponge. After Leon shared all of the remnant scripture, the ordinary young man carefully packed away his notebook, then inquired with admiration. Thank you, Senior Leon. I will surely remember this well. By the way, what you just explained, was it all summarized by Senior Emma? Yes. Upon hearing this, Leon nodded and replied kindly. These were all things I learned from Senior Emma before, so there's no need to thank me. When Senior Emma returns after completing her tasks, just thank her directly. Huh? On hearing this, the ordinary young man was momentarily taken aback, then asked somewhat puzzledly, Senior Leon, hasn't Senior Emma been back for several days already? Didn't you notice? Has Senior Emma been back for several days? Hearing the ordinary young man's words, Leon was slightly taken aback and then reached out to touch the goat horn protruding from his sleeve. Sure enough, in the soul vision of the black goat, Senior Emma's slightly anxious soul was indeed lingering in her office. Her somewhat chaotic soul state seemed to suggest she was troubled by something. Strange, since she's been back for several days. Why haven't I heard any noise from next door? And I've also not seen her go back to see little Ellie? Feeling a bit puzzled, Leon helped the ordinary young man choose an office and, after leading him to some office supplies, came to Senior Emma's office and gently knocked on the door. "Senior Emma, are you free now?" Leon? Hearing the voice outside the door, Emma, who was frowning and pondering behind her desk, was slightly stunned and then flung out a bandage to turn the doorknob. "I am free. Is there something you need to talk about?" "It's nothing. I just noticed you were back and came to check in on you." Even though Leon knew Senior Emma probably needed help, since this knowledge came from peering into her soul state, he didn't directly ask if she needed assistance, but instead hinted from the side. "Senior Emma, I heard from Anna that it's been almost 2 weeks since you last visited Ellie. If you don't have a new task immediately, why not come to my place to see her after work today?" Ellie, hearing Leon mention her daughter, a gentle warmth crossed Emma's face, but she quickly shook her head and declined Leon's suggestion. "Better not. My current state is a bit unsuitable. It might frighten the child. It's really not appropriate to go to your place immediately. Better wait a few days." "Your current state?" Leon was taken aback upon hearing this and then carefully observed her situation. Still the familiar beige skirt suit, still the originally fair skin almost translucent like jade, even her gentle demeanor was just as before. Except for the several loops of bandages on her arms and her slightly tired eyes, there was not the slightest difference between Senior Emma now and before. "What's wrong? Isn't this just fine?" Question mark. Hearing Leon's somewhat puzzled question, it was Emma's turn to be confused. She turned her head to look in the mirror on the desk. Staring at the woman with a pale face, indifferent eyes, and a body exuding an intense murderous aura almost turning solid, she couldn't help but touch her own face and asked in confusion, "Is my murderous aura so heavy that you can't feel it?" "Murderous aura?" "Yes." Emma nodded. Then, with some exhaustion, said, "I was assigned a mission to investigate the recent upheaval at Merino County's volcanoes and discovered it was the secret society Earth Essence Society causing mischief. They planned to forcibly detonate 2 volcanoes to extract metals from them. This society's members are not particularly strong, but they love to enslave a large number of ordinary people, driving controlled individuals into dangerous areas to help them mine. To stop their chaos, I had to use heavy-handed justice, killing over 100 of their members in one go, and use torture devices to subdue more than 6,000 controlled civilians." "Ah, well, it's good that you stopped them from creating chaos." After waiting a while without hearing more, Leon could only awkwardly comment and then continue to ask, "And then what happened next?" "Afterward, I executed over 100 evildoers and then had to use torture devices on more than 6,000 people, using pain to help them break free from control. That's why there's such a heavy murderous aura around me, which may scare children." "Oh, so that's what you meant." After taking a fair bit of time to realize what Senior Emma was worried about, Leon showed a look of sudden enlightenment, then said somewhat sheepishly, "I just got back from the promotion assessment. Everyone looked brimming with murderous aura when they went for assessment, and after getting used to it, I've become a bit insensitive to it. So that's how it is." Upon hearing Leon's explanation, Emma nodded knowingly and then curiously asked, "By the way, how did your promotion assessment go? Is the qualification for the 2nd-level cleaner going to be awarded soon?" "The promotion assessment, although there were some minor issues during the exam, my assessment was quite smooth. It's just that the whole cleanup bureau doesn't seem to be going well. It's okay. It's not a big deal if you don't promote temporarily." Misunderstanding Leon's strange expression, seeing him quite at a loss for words, Emma kindly refrained from asking further, instead comforting softly with her eyes. "Don't lose heart. With your talent and strength, you will ascend sooner or later. Even if this assessment didn't go well, just make a greater effort at the one at the end of the year." "Make an effort again at the end of the year? That shouldn't be possible, right?" I guess it won't even take until the end of the year. Once director of Taurus succeeds, when the headquarters is free, they'll probably permanently ban me from taking the exam. Let's not talk about this for now. Although I didn't plan to abide by Director of Archer's requests to keep the happenings in the promotion exam a secret from everyone. Recounting my experience of consuming all the reference cleaners myself, then devouring the entire demonic soul abyss, and my continued feats afterward doesn't sound appealing. So Leon actively changed the subject. Senior Emma, have you been staying in your office these past few days because you're waiting for the, murderous aura to fade? Yes. Looking at her formidable appearance in the mirror, Emma, with some dejection, said, I also want to see Ellie, but with the current circumstances, it's really not suitable yet. Better wait a few more days. By the way, Leon. Saying this, Emma raised her head to carefully observe Leon's demeanor, with a slight hint of relief in her eyes, and said, It seems you've adapted well to the work in the bureau. Compared to when I first met you, your aura is growing more serene each time, and you're smiling more and more. You are really doing well. Do I seem serene to others? Am I smiling more? Hearing Emma's compliment, Leon couldn't help but touch his nose. As the abnormal objects in my hand accumulate, the contamination value slowly rises, and my strength has advanced tremendously. By now, I've avenged grievances on the spot, and I generally don't brood over things internally, which indeed makes me more peaceful than before. As for smiling more, do I smile often?